Recording stopped.
Let's call this budget session
Recording
back
in
to
progress.
order. Hopefully everyone's checked in. The girls have gone ahead and checked the ones that are on Zoom, and we do have a quorum. So at this time, if we'll stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Supervisor Powers.
Good and gracious Creator, guide our decisions today. Guard and protect our children as they go trick-or-treating tonight, and remind drivers to be ever vigilant. Give the world's leaders the wisdom to end the conflicts around the globe. Amen.
Okay, we'll just continue right on. We do not need adoption of the agenda, being that we're going to continue right on. At this time, if anyone in the audience wishes to speak to the board on anything having to do with Winnebago County that they have jurisdiction over, you may come forward, state your name and address, and you have 2 minutes to do so. Just come up to the podium and back.
Paul Eisen, 1807 Brighton Beach Road, Fox Crossing, District 4. At the October 17, 2023 County Board meeting, our county executive told the board he formulates the budget and the county board makes amendments. The county executive has told the board he has received the following department head requests, which he has turned down. Sheriff's Department, 1.6 million operational. Facilities Department, 790,000. Information Technology, 300,000. Public Health, 200,000. Parks, 200,000. He came up with a total of 4 million, but I only counted 3 there, so there must be other requests he didn't mention at the 17th meeting. The county executive has told the board he has 2 overreaching concerns. 1, long-term sustainability for the compensation plan, and 2, reduce the use of fund balance to balance the budget. I want to inform the board that we have the authority and the power to meet the department head's requests for funding. And we have the ability to provide for long-term sustainability of the compensation plan and reduce the dependence on fund balance. The solution, my friends, is what 69 Wisconsin counties have done, including Outagamie, Brown, and Fond du Lac counties. We can enact a half-cent county sales tax to generate $18 million of revenue to meet the financial needs of Winnebago County. I thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the board?
Karen Powers, 2563 Village Lane, District 25. We all have departments and directors that we are very proud of and we think is doing a good job. I would urge my fellow county supervisors not to spend time during budgets to praise various directors. It's just stoking ego and giving yourself a chance to talk. If you're really very pleased with the job that one of your directors is doing, let the county executive know, that's their boss, and put that in his pocket, that how pleased you are with any individual or a number of department heads. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the board? Anyone else? Anyone else? Is there anyone on Zoom? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, we'll close that part of the meeting. Okay, we got 2024 county budget public hearing pursuant to County Board Rule 4.1. Reports from committee, commissions, and boards. Not seeing any, we'll continue right on. County Board Chairman's report. We do have quite a few that's on Zoom today, so we do have a quorum because of that. We needed 19, so we have over 20 plus the ones that are on Zoom, so we're in good shape there. So there's some supervisors that will be late today for personal reasons, but otherwise they will also be joining us in a little while. So other than that, we'll continue right on. I do want to say that we will have, if you've noticed, Supervisor Beam wasn't at the meeting last night, and he's not here today. He is moving out of his district, so he did resign as of Monday. Has turned all of his stuff in that in, so we will have to file for another replacement. So I think we've got a record set this year on how many replacements we've had to have. So, but that's why he did, well, because he's moving out of the district. So, okay, at this time, if there's no further discussion from anyone, I am going to say for the continuation presentation of the 2024 annual budget resolution number 276-1023, adopting the county budget and levying property tax. I believe that we left off with pardon? Right, we left off with the county treasurer, so, but we skipped over the county clerk. So we'll start with the county clerk. And she don't want to infect anybody, so she's going to stand back here.
Okay, for the county clerk, I'm just, we're on page 94. The county clerk's office, our main thing is the election. And if you would notice, this year's election budget is twice what it was last year. That's because of having 4 elections this year versus 2. And then the other thing that happened from last year to this year is the state took away work permits from us. It's something they do now. The kids have to go online to get their work permits. From what I've heard from different ones, that's not going very well, so I don't know if it would be something that would come back to us at some date or not. And then I will open it for any questions.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Julie, I was just wondering, what is the age that you need to have a work permit? I was at festival the other day, and I was waited on by a couple of babies, so I just wondered, they look so young.
Right.
How old do you have to be to get a work permit?
15.
15. Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Cox.
Good morning, Chairman. Thank you. Julie, how many people do you have serving that office with you? There's 2?
With
the
myself,
deputy,
there's
yourself,
myself, 2 full-time and 1 part-time.
and 1 part-time. And those people handle all the elections. They handle all of the minutes, all of the agendas for all the committees. And you find yourself a little bit overworked out there, trying to keep up with everything that comes in. Is that correct?
Some days, yes.
Yes. would it be easy to assume that you might need a part-time person in there?
That could help.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie.
When Mr. or Supervisor Cox just asked about a part-time person, are you looking at like just election time, or are you looking like a full part-time, or when can you really use them? I know, I've been in your office, so I know what goes on a lot sometimes, but you want to just kind of explain to some that aren't in your office as much?
I'm sorry, this is hard. There's times when we are really, really busy that we could use that extra person. But then there's the days, like this year is just a 2-election year. So this has been a little bit slower for us since April. Next year could be a nightmare. It's a presidential year. So having that extra person, even if it's to type the minutes for us, so I have to try and determine how much that person would be needed. With most of us have quite a bit of vacation, so that extra person would even help there, that they could cover when one of the other ones are gone.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thanks very much. Thanks for talking a little bit more about some of the needs. I think, this has always been a department that has been short on human beings. And so I imagine that a vacation, an illness, anything that takes somebody out of the office has always created some shifting of, we just need to play this role today to get today covered. I think I'd like to know a little bit more. I don't think I have a formulated question yet, but I do want to know a little bit more while we have you here about that, because it does seem to be something that could be addressed. I guess maybe I'll ask this: Is this something that like a temporary employee would be more appropriate than like a full-time table of organization position?
I believe it could be. I do. It's hard. It's really hard for me because I don't want to say our office can't do it. But to find that temporary person, if there's someone out there that can do that, and that they're either used to doing minutes, so we could bring them in and they just would whip right through them. That would be something we'd be looking for as well.
Okay. I think this is like one of the hardest things about my role as a supervisor right now in these meetings is understanding what's really needed, because I know everybody is gonna like pull those ropes as hard as they can to get the ends to meet, because that's what that's what the good people at Winnebago County do every time, and I know the job's going to get done. I think for me the question is what can we do to make sure that things get done smoothly and in sustainable ways, so that it's not like let's grab this steering wheel and white knuckle it through this presidential election year so that we can take a breath the next year in preparation for white knuckling it for a whole nother year.
Right.
So if, I think I'll probably come back and talk to you later if there isn't, if there isn't something else. But I think it'd be great if you have some thoughts later to share about, if a temporary employee or what would be the best solution for the needs that you have. I think in a similar vein to the conversation we had last night about the way the Corporation Counsel's office supports the board, I think your office has probably taken on a lot more responsibilities with this board, and it's not fair for this board to put that burden on you or the Corporation Counsel without also asking these questions and being willing to fund and support the things that we're asking for. So I appreciate, and feel free to, anything else you want to share here.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Binder.
I too see how they could be overworked. I mean, we had two committees that were studying the per diem and the structure of the committees. They set up all those meetings. We were meeting twice a month. Most of our meetings took over 3 hours. So that was 6 hours that we took of their time in a month, plus whatever the other committee was working on for the committee structure, you know, we used to always get somebody from personnel to take our minutes for personnel and finance. All of a sudden, there's nobody available. Clerk has to do that. She has to get our agenda. She has to contact finance. She has to contact personnel. She has to get all that information and get it to us. Where for the 8 years I've been on this board, personnel supplied that information. They supplied somebody to take the minutes at the meeting. Every other committee I'm on has somebody from that office taking the minutes. All of a sudden, personnel can't do that anymore. They don't have any people. But I do see they have somebody in the budget. So maybe we need to take that person out of the budget for personnel, because apparently, you know, they're not willing to work with us and give us somebody for 3 hours to help with personnel and finance, and give that to Julie, because she's basically got to do their work.
Supervisor Gabbard.
Just a thought, Julie, for you. Maybe an intern would work. And the reason I'm suggesting that is we got the campus here, and we have Fox Valley Tech. Maybe we could get a student intern that's following some kind of path similar to either working in the government or in accounting or something like that. So just keep that in mind. Maybe that would be a line item we could add to your budget.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Cox.
Just to answer Mr. Binder's part of his question, personnel has taken and removed in the TO, eliminated the spot that we had for a part-timer to come and do our minutes. So we're looking at the clerk's office to have that help come over. And that takes, 2 or 3 hours on our Thursdays, plus the minute writing, plus going back to the YouTube and whatever else that they have to do to set up our agenda, just for one committee. And if you multiply that by all the committees that they now do, ARPA, they now do, I believe they did the ad hoc committees, those add up enormous amount of time on top of their normal duties. So that's my view on it. I think that she could use a part-time person in there to kind of help balance the workload. I'm done.
Okay, is there anyone on Zoom?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to administration, general services, work compensation fund, and property and liability insurance fund. Who is going to take that? Should be pretty much right back in order now.
Page 116. First budget is the administration department budget. The administration department includes 4 persons, including myself, the contract and procurement manager, the risk manager. Pardon? Did I say 118? Page 118. Sorry if I said the wrong page. And the administrative associate 1 who manages the print shop for the county in the mailroom. The changes in the Department of Administration budget are principally 2. First of all, last year for the 2023 budget, there was a combined or a centralized budget established for employee development, professional training, leadership training, and that was put in the miscellaneous and unclassified fund. We're trying to get away from having too many budgets that are not assigned to a particular manager, so that budget was moved to the administration department, so it's more directly under my control, and increased to $75,000 since we have a new merit pay system in which one of the key elements in achieving a merit pay eligibility is to demonstrate employee development and professional development. And so we want to make sure there's adequate funds available to provide that. That should not be the reason someone doesn't get a merit pay, is that there was not the opportunity to attend the appropriate professional development. So that $75,000 budget has now been established as part of the administration department budget. But pardon me?
Just please buzz in and you can
Yeah.
ask the questions afterwards.
Yeah, that budget is in Object 5200, which is on the top of page 123. The other major change is a key aspect of this job is to try to coordinate activities of different departments, especially administrative departments. A real sore point in terms of interdepartmental conflict has been our what we call the Munis software, but now it's Tyler Enterprise ERP software. That's our enterprise software that runs all our finances, all our HR information, and so forth. So it's a key thing for the county. That budget had been split among 3 departments, both for maintaining the software and training. As I said, there are incentives to departments to try to cut down on training and development, so we haven't had the kind of training and updates that perhaps we should have had in that ERP software. So again, we've consolidated all the budgets for that ERP software within the Department of Administration, even though HR, Finance, IT, all 3 participate. So we have one budget, first of all, to provide the software licensing, to provide all the updates, to make sure we're up to date. And we also budgeted a significant amount this year for what's called PACE training, to have people from the company actually come in and work with us, because we have not been using that software to its potential. We underwent a major upgrade to that software this year, and we're just kind of scratching the surface of really what the upgrades can do for us in terms of improving our processes. So we want to consolidate that budget in this department. So that budget is in at least 2 places in the budget. I have to find the right line items for you. Looking at the wrong one. There you go. Data processing 55013 on page 124 is where the upgrade and the licensing costs and upgrade maintenance costs, $194,000. That's new to this department. And then the professional service 55014 is to cover the PACE training, which will include an audit of that software to make sure we're using all the modules we're paying for, and we can drop the ones we're not. So those are really the only changes to the administration department, other than the labor changes. So if there are any questions, I can address those.
Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My comment was in regard to the last clerk's office issue. In my opinion, if I might address that briefly, I think she's understaffed and overworked, to put it quite simply. Thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had 2 questions. I was concerned as well about that contractual services, that the increase from nothing to $212,000. What changed this year that precipitated this with the data processing and professional services? And then I have one more question.
It was really just to consolidate those in the Department of Administration. In prior years, those amounts were split between the HR budget, the finance department, and the IT budget. So we had 3 different departments all trying to manage it and not coordinating well. So we're consolidating them all in my department so that the individual departments, the HR, finance, and IT departments don't have to worry about that in their budget, and we can more directly address overall what the county needs to do coordinating among the 3 departments. So it's really just a consolidation.
Okay, and then my second question, is it the printing shop, I don't know, who does signage in the, for county facilities? Room designations or even park signs and so on? Is that your printing part, or do we outsource signage?
No, the signage is done, the signage for buildings is done in the facilities department. The signage for parks would be done directly by the Parks Department.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Collard. This, the Department Administration created 2 years ago was talked about as creating efficiencies in government, and if I remember correctly, finding grant opportunities throughout the, we've got a bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed, Inflation Reduction Act, that kind of stuff. Is your department been working on grant opportunities and efficiencies in government? That's, part of the, was what we talked about here at this county board level.
Well, when I can, the Munis or ERP software is one example of that. There have been a lot of things coming down the road for county management in the past year, a lot of things. So we've had to deal with ARPA. I've been very involved in that, especially last year, a little bit less so as our finance director is up to speed and a part of that group. We've had the Neighborhood Improvement Fund grant. I was very involved in that and setting that up and doing the contracting. There were a lot of issues with how that was set up. We had a lot of difficulty dealing with the state, so that involved coordinating among the various departments as well. There's the opioid settlement funds that are coming in. Those need to be accounted for properly. Again, finance director wasn't really ready to take that on, and I was involved in setting up how those are being handled. So that's just 3 examples of things that have come down that I've been heavily involved with.
Thank you. Anything else in the future that you're looking towards as far as grant opportunities or promoting efficiency in government?
There are a lot of things we would like to do in terms of efficiency of government, and it has to do with coordinating among departments, making sure we're doing things the most effective way. We don't really have resources at the management level right now to do as much as we'd like to, just in terms of evaluating how we do things. How do we handle, if public health needs to take their van to get an oil change at the highway department, and then they're charged, very high numbered, should someone be looking at that? Is there a way we can actually save money by getting work done at the highway department? We don't really have the people with the time to do little things like that, and that's the reason we're proposing a management analyst position be included in the finance department budget this year, is really to help us as the management team with looking at some more particular details like that I think will pay off very well.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Bucket Powers touched on it, and you started answering what I'm about to discuss. And I don't know if this is a singular answer for you as opposed to also you and County Executive Damel. On paper, it appears that administration, across all administration departments, has doubled in staff. And why? What has changed in this county from 2020 to now that we would have to increase so many people?
Certainly not doubled in staff, not even close to it. The administrative staffs together, I'm trying to make a count in my head. Patty, how many do you have? 18. Okay, 18 there. What is it, 11 in HR, 7 in finance. The risk management person was always there. The risk, the contract and procurement manager was always there. The general services person was always there. So that's 40 people. So we've added 1 person in HR so far and 1 person in administration. So that's 2.5% increase. What we've done with that is, frankly, the demands have vastly increased on administration over the past few years since the pandemic. Look at recruiting in HR. They recruit about 250 people a year. That's double what it was when I started here, double the recruiting effort, and they're twice as hard to get each one, right? We added 1 person to take care of that. It's not enough. We should probably have added more because recruiting is so much more difficult now. Believe me, it is. And we've added 1 person. In payroll, we're seeking to add a second payroll person and to partly pay for it by eliminating in HR a administrative associate position, which will put some additional duties on some other people, but we feel we need to put a third person in payroll because the payroll rules have gotten so complicated. And to have only people doing payroll and benefits, they're getting overwhelmed. You know, and we had some turnover. We lost a lot of experience in that department, but we found that they can't keep up, and that's a very dangerous area not to be able to keep up in, because if people don't get paid, they don't work. And so that's an extremely high priority item for us. So that's why we're requesting the second new HR person, second new full-time with the loss of a part-time in HR. And then in terms of my position, when you think about what the HR director and finance director used to do, in the position we were in a year ago, we didn't have a finance director and hadn't had one for a year. Almost our entire finance department turned over. Payroll accounts person named Brian stayed with us, and Carol back there stayed with us. And other than those two people, the entire finance department turned over in the last year. You know, without the administrative position, Department of Administration, how would we have survived that? Outagamie County, as far as I know right now, unless something's changed, is without a finance director and a deputy finance director, and the corporation council is doing it. Do you want to add that to Mary Ann's workload when that happens? That would have been a disaster. And no disrespect to Mary Ann, but I don't know how we could have handled that without this position in place. So it's to provide some backup. The demands on those positions are extreme, the HR director and the finance director. And frankly, the biggest part of my job is taking some load off of those two positions. You know, the risk management used to be in HR. Workers' compensation, safety, all that sort of thing used to be in HR. Property and liability insurance used to be in finance. We don't have anyone now in finance with any expertise in that area. So we've consolidated that as part of the Department of Administration. That's what we do. To add those duties to what the finance director and the HR director do, I tell you one thing, they wouldn't be able to get 3 huge HR projects done in 1 year. They wouldn't be able to do a complete pay study, which most counties take 2 years to do, and we did it in about 8 months. Complete revamping of our classification and our pay system. Then to completely redo the merit pay program. And now we're ready to present a completely new combined paid time off program. Those are 3 huge HR projects that we're doing in 1 year, and most counties would have taken multiple years for any one of those projects. All right, so that's really what this position has accomplished. I'm taking credit for a lot of Mark's work because I was able to put him in a position to get those things done because we improved a little bit our capacity at the managerial level. Without it, not a chance of getting those things done. So that's how I see it.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hope everybody clicks save on your speech about human resources. I think that's one of the key things for the whole efficiency of how our county goes, and lament that last year this board was 1 vote shy of adding that payroll and benefits manager as an amendment, or specialist as an amendment. Glad to see it this year. I'm going to ask about the leadership development line a little bit. So was there ever a consideration to putting that in human resources? And the reason I ask is a lot of other county budgets that I've seen have leadership development or professional development or those sorts of things as a function of human resources. Human resources is generally the ones, housing the evaluations and things like that. So I was just curious, not a jaded question or anything, just curious if there was any discussion between those two departments.
Well, certainly, if not for all the other things we're doing in human resources over the past year, that's the absolute next priority, is to have human resources really step up the game in terms of professional development and employee development generally. And they do. And I'm not saying they don't do anything with that. And they do still do the evaluations and merit and so forth. That's all in their ballpark and something they're handling currently. I think with respect to this fund, we're looking more at, saying yes or no to other department heads. So I think there wasn't a lot of discussion about it, frankly, but I think part of the reasoning is we wanted a little bit more centralized in an office with a little bit more authority. Since I'm over the HR director, it's a little easier for me to tell another department head, yes, you can have this money, and no, you can't have this money to do your project. So I think that's part of the reasoning, but I don't know that that's a crucial factor.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, to put sort of your role as the gatekeeper of those funds. Okay, so this isn't the only way that people develop their leadership skills, right? This isn't the only professional development that we have. A lot of departments have that budgeted as maybe tuition, or travel, registration at conferences, and that's part of professional and leadership development too, right?
Yes, almost all departments have some budget for that currently.
What is the difference between this $75,000 pot of leadership development money and those other budgeted pieces?
Departments have been very reluctant to budget a lot of money for that. It has been in the past subject of a lot of county board scrutiny. Sometimes people worry the county board might think we're just going on boondoggles and having fun trips. That's not the purpose of it. So we want to make sure we have some centralized management of that to make sure it's being used appropriately. But the real difference is the greater emphasis put on the need for that. It's not something we've ever done a good job at, frankly. Since I've been here, I started in 2013. Our budget for employee training has been ridiculously low compared to an organization our size in most cases would have. So we really need to ramp up our efforts there and do a better job, particularly in leadership training and so forth. That's all been done it's primarily been done through departments. And HR used to do a little bit more of it. We used to do supervisory roundtables every month or two. Those kind of fell by the wayside because of the press of other business. When the labor market changed and the recruiting efforts became so much more difficult and so forth, we didn't have the staff to really do that properly in HR. So it fell by the wayside a little bit. We need to get it back on track and re-emphasize, especially with the changes in the merit pay plan. Someone has to have a leadership or at least a employee development opportunity in order to get that merit raise if they're in the upper quadrant of the pay range. We can't deny them that because we don't have the money to send them to training. So we want to make sure the money is there for that. So it's just a greater emphasis on the training.
Okay. And then it's not a lot of money. Like it's like $75 per employee, like roughly, maybe probably less.
No, just less.
I'm assuming that not every employee is going to be tapping into this. Is that, can you talk a little bit about like maybe who's going to have access to these opportunities?
Yeah, it's going to be requests coming from departments, but we are very much encouraging departments to seek out those opportunities for their people. We're going through the evaluation process now, so as we speak, I'm sure out there somewhere is a supervisor having a conversation with an employee about what training, what development opportunities do you need in 2024. Once that is done, which will be by the end of this month, then, we'll start talking to department heads, okay, what do you need? What are we looking at? And they'll bring up requests for transfers of that money to me, and we'll spend it on whatever we think is appropriate.
Great. I think this is a really important function of the work we do to develop our work staff, to continue to think about. I think it goes to the same points as the pay study and the PTO and things like that. How are we developing people is an important factor to whether they want to stay employed and whatnot. So really excited that this is a dedicated piece, and really look forward to hearing like the results and what more can be done. I feel like this is too little. I understand there's lots of budget constraints, and you're probably feeling the same thing that departments used to feel, trying to squeeze it in. But I do think this is incredibly important to think about the succession planning, how we're promoting internally, and how we're feeding a narrative that working for the county is good for a career and things like that. So thanks for bringing this forward. One last question. I want to ask about that shared position that you have with the executive's office. When the board approved it, one of the things that I think you talked about was that position taking some work off of the risk manager. And has that position been on board long enough to sort of speak to that, or not yet?
Absolutely. In fact, our risk manager was out for a period of, trying to remember how long, but more than a week. And that person stepped in and handled all the paperwork, and I didn't really have to become very involved because I had requested, of course, that person be trained and brought up to speed, and that seems to be working fairly well. That person is able to handle workers' comp claims and property and liability damage claims at the present time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Supervisor Ernst.
Thank you. My questions are about the Tyler Technology software. So that 194,000, is that strictly from the reallocation of that item into the administration budget from, what does it say, finance and human resources? Or is this number a little bit higher due to like the new software, right?
It's a little higher, not due to anything really new that we've purchased other than the upgrade, but we're just seeing pay increases from or not pay increases, we're seeing cost increases from the vendor, but that's all that's included. No
Okay.
additional products.
And the extreme difficulties you mentioned, you sort of alluded to in terms of, you mentioned like payroll and recruiting and things like that. Are these snarls that you hope this new system will be able to address, like after the intensive training that's going on?
Yeah, we just
Or
haven't
the
had time to
requesting?
really evaluate it, but one module that is being paid for in the new system is applicant tracking, which should help out recruiting. Now, before the upgrade, we made a couple of tries at getting applicant tracking to work and didn't find a way to really have it be useful to us. Frankly, we were very disappointed with it, but it's been substantially improved. We understand, we haven't figured out exactly what its capabilities are after the upgrade yet because we just haven't had time to do that. But that's something we're going to evaluate. We're either going to start using it or we're going to stop paying for it and drop it entirely.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, as I go through the budget book, there are several examples of where money is being moved from the unclassified budget into department budgets. Making those moves is, in my opinion, reduces transparency and it makes it more difficult sometimes to address that funding when they're included in the departments. Can you give me the reason why this is being done? Or proposed, I should say.
Certainly. My philosophy on that, I'm afraid I'm going to differ with yours a little bit.
We do occasionally.
Respectfully
Yes,
so.
sir.
But we all have our opinions. My opinion is that, my observation as someone with 26 years management experience in county government is, you need to have accountability. And county governments are not really built for accountability. One of the ways to avoid accountability is to have your budget attached to a department that has no manager. Who's responsible for it? Who's accountable for it? Who's accountable for making sure we get the best value from that investment? It's not clear at all. Okay, this year, and I'm not saying there's a problem with it. This year there's 50,000 in miscellaneous unclassified for training. What does that mean? Who's managing that 50,000 and making sure it's appropriately spent? I'm not saying it isn't being managed. It is. But if you were to say, Mike, who's responsible for that? It's a miscellaneous unclassified. It's not as clear an answer as it is for 2024, where it's me, right? Put it in my department. I'll be responsible for managing it. I'm to be held accountable, right? So the same with a couple of other items. Yeah, I think it's better to have the person responsible for managing the expenditure should see that in that department's budget, just to improve accountability. Sometimes, programs keep going. Who's responsible for the county fair? I don't know that we have someone, and I don't know that that's a change in this budget. I wish we could think of someone to assign that to, because then maybe it would be more actively managed. And I know what you're referring to is moving the IDB money into planning and zoning, for instance. Well, that's to make them responsible for making sure that money is appropriately spent, making sure we're doing what we should with that money. I think that's just a better management tool to use a better management approach. That's my opinion. I know yours may differ. I understand that, but it's at the board's pleasure now, whether you want to approve it as it is or move it back, I guess.
I appreciate your response, but I most certainly do disagree, especially with East Central Regional Planning, especially with the fair issue. And of course, now we have another example of 75,000. So I would disagree respectfully, sir. Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I guess my comment would be on the recruiting. Parkview, you know, we've been short on CNAs and RNs for the last 2 years. You know, we're at about 100 or 165 bed nursing home with 98 residents. And I've mentioned to Mark many times that Evergreen's offering signing bonuses. The benefit package is about the same. If somebody's gonna give an RN $5,000 to take a job there and about the same wages that we are, why wouldn't we start matching some of these signing bonuses? I mean, we owe it to there's 24 people on a waiting list waiting to get into that nursing home. And in the last 3 years, we've had no progress on getting CNAs. We've been about 58 short. We're 58 about short today. We're about 10, well, we're actually 14 LPNs and 14, you know, between them and RNs short. We have to make some headway. And when you talk about recruiting, what is your plan to basically get some people so we can open some of the wings up and start serving the people of Winnebago County?
Well, that's a very tough issue. Obviously, we're far from the only skilled nursing facility that is short-staffed these days. Everyone is short-staffed, and they're closing, and it's a horrible situation. Our focus has been on, first of all, pay and benefits, and we've made several moves to improve pay and benefits in the nursing situation there. Our pay is extremely competitive. Our benefits are very competitive and will be even more competitive if the board passes the PTO proposal that will probably come to the board later this month, or later next month, I should say. It's still October. Happy Halloween. So that's been our focus. The next focus really is on the thing we haven't benefited from, which we should, is word of mouth. And that's a cultural issue. People come to our nursing home who've worked at other nursing homes and say, this is great. We have a much better staffing ratio. We have a much better nursing home. I can feel great about where I work. But that doesn't get out to other people because the existing employees don't see it that way sometimes or don't talk it up that way. So I think we really need to focus more on how great our nursing home is and how good a work environment it is, and our staffing ratios are much more realistic and better than they are at nursing homes, and that provides a better working environment. That will get us people. I've talked many times in my career to other HR directors who have given signing bonuses and then regretted it. It's a short-term fix. People will come, then they leave, then you have a tremendous hassle trying to get back the portion of the money, or depending on exactly how you set up your signing bonus. You know, usually there's some strings attached. You have to work a certain amount of years, a certain number of months. Those can be very tough to deal with because they want the money up front, but then they're gone in 6 months anyway, because the person who's attracted by a signing bonus is the one who's interested in a short-term opportunity. And our focus has been more on more long-term opportunities. We want people who are going to come and are going to stay and really work for our residents for a long time. We also get a ton of students coming through. The bonuses don't work for that because they know they're going to be short-term. You know, they're getting their degree or something. So based on who our employee population is, we haven't seen that as the best approach. It's something we're going to keep talking about. I'm not shutting the door on it. I'm not saying absolutely not, but we haven't found a proposal that we think will really make sense and really make a difference in our recruitment there.
I guess my opinion is, like, when you got the graduating class coming out of UW Oshkosh in the nursing program and they're looking for a job, if somebody's going to give me $5,000 to take a job at Parkview or at Evergreen, I'm going to go, you know, to take that $5,000 and get some experience, where we're not offering that. Evergreen is offering $5,000. So I'm a new nurse and I'm looking to start a profession. Well, we don't have to offer it forever, but I would think when we have graduating classes, we would have some type of program so we could kind of recruit the new people, because they're going to go, they basically just got out of school, they need money, and the wages are about the same. I looked them up on Evergreen and I looked them up on our site. The benefits, the insurance is about the same, so the only difference really is what you're gonna give them upfront. You know, and for 3 years, we've been about this many CNA short, about, 60, and we've been between 10 and 14 LPNs and RPNs short. We have made no progress. We stay at about 98 residents on a 165-bed nursing home. If this was an apartment building and you owned it, you would have been bankrupt. You know, so it's like either we have to get on with the program and serve the people of Winnebago County, and we have to reinvent how we get these people, because we cannot continue to operate year after year and just say, well, we're doing the best we can. We have to do better.
Appreciate your comments, and we'll certainly continue to consider all options.
Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bender hasn't seen is our committee over time has evaluated just exactly what you're talking about. The bonus, sign-on bonus, is a trap. It's a trap because unless you're working with the tail end of a sign-on bonus for a period of time and you work with people that are going to hang around, that goes away as soon as they decide to leave. The other thing is we have looked at all of the various healthcare centers. We've compared. We've done incentives to comply with the various competition between the healthcare centers. Well, I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to get CNAs to come and stay with us. On top of that, we have a training center that we now have employed. So that training center helps us keep the people that we absorb through our competition and incentive programs. And I think when you take a look at what the committee and what the people managing over at Parkview are doing, they're doing a pretty splendid job, really, by just doing what they can with very little and, and as little fanfare as they need. So,
Thank you.
done.
Okay, not seeing anyone else and no one on Zoom. I thank you, Mike.
Well, I have 3 other budgets
Oh.
that I
you're
didn't
gonna
mention,
do them
so I
all?
was taking
Okay.
them one at a
All right,
time. really,
okay,
if you don't
I didn't
mind.
know you were doing them all. Okay.
So the next budget, beginning on page 125, is the general services budget. This is an internal service budget that doesn't take any tax levy. The expenses are all charged out for departments based on services rendered. It's primarily responsible for 2 things. One is printing, the other is mail. So we outsource much of the mail, but there are some duties, particularly in the courthouse, to sort the mail, to work with the mail vendor who comes and actually brings the mail to the post office. We did have employee turnover in that position this year. In fact, 2 turnovers. The new person is working well. The position doesn't, as I said, doesn't take tax levy. We have had decreased demand for centralized printing, especially in this building. So it's showing a deficit right now. There is a fund balance. It's showing a deficit because we don't currently have enough departments requesting print jobs to justify, all of the expenses. That is something we're absolutely going to continue to evaluate. We did move one major piece of equipment over to the admin building, one printer, high-speed printer over there. And we're trying to be a little bit more responsive to departments, what they need. We're also going to continue to evaluate some outsourcing options as opposed to, the equipment costs there. Otherwise, there's no real change in the expenses. It's essentially the labor of the one position and the various equipment needs. We also do things such as the photocopiers throughout the county organization. That is something that we do on a 5-year lease from a vendor. That contract is up for renegotiation in 2024. So we did We put a little extra in there in case we decide to hire a consultant to help us with that, negotiating that 5-year contract, if that's what the next one turns out to be. For photocopiers, there is a lot of money involved in that. And if we do spend that money on a consultant, it will be as a percentage of the savings that might be produced. We haven't made a decision on that yet, but otherwise it's primarily and that's in other contract services, which is 55030 on page 130. You'll see that went up, and went up by $30,000 just in case we decide to hire that consultant. Otherwise, as I said, we're going to continue to evaluate that function during 2024 to see if we're doing it the most efficient way we can. But otherwise, no other changes currently in the budget.
We have a question on that, Mike.
Yeah.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the first time that I can remember that this budget is running a deficit. Or it looks like 2023 projected will be the first time in a long time that and then 2024, first time we're budgeting a deficit. And you said it was because less departments are requesting services out of general services?
Yes, more departments are either doing printing themselves on their own photocopiers, or we do have a few departments that have been sending things out.
Okay. And so general services gets its revenue by saying, okay, it's going to cost you 10 cents for us to print, each page of the budget book or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So was there a thought to like adjusting the internal costs so that this is a neutral, or not levy, but fund neutral department? Or can you talk a little bit about the philosophy of letting this run 80,000 off the fund balance?
Well, we are giving thought to that, but if we just raise kind of the internal rates, what happens is departments aren't going to pay general services 10 cents a page if they can get 5 cents a page from copy print down the street or whatever it is. So it's really almost an outsourcing issue. We can't really, the market, if you will, even internally doesn't bear. We're not going to charge people more just to make this budget even if it's costing other department budgets more expense in their area than it needs to. So that's why we're really going to take a hard look at the overall operation. I'm sure there are things that can still be useful from this person. We still need someone to do various tasks, but we're probably going to spread it out a little bit more, not have it just so centralized in the basement of this building.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. 30 years ago, there weren't quick print shops that, make some of this more affordable and easier and more accessible, I think, for, your average person to go get a print job done or whatever. Is this something that I'm sorry, I forget the positions exactly, business analyst or whatever was going into is this something that like that position would be suited to analyze and determine what we should do with this, or how are you thinking about how that analysis of this department's functions happen?
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent example of what a management analyst could do. Look at a function like this and say, okay, here's what we should be looking at. What's the cost? How do we determine what's sent out? How do we determine what's done in-house? Should we add capability in-house? Maybe better graphics or better design capabilities to avoid sending things out. Those take a lot of time to look at. I haven't had time to look at them. We also, and I should say, because the reason for demand is partly because of that kind of outside competition, but also partly because we lost our employee who was, a 30-year plus employee. And so we had a vacancy for a while, and it took a while to find a person to fill the position. So people had to look elsewhere for a time, and so you lose business that way, we found as well. But it'll give us a good chance, and I can assure you that next year coming back, I don't think we'll be looking at an $80,000 projected deficit. We'll be looking at it a little bit different way of doing things.
Okay. And then my last question is, right now, how does a department head know what direction they should send a print job or whatever? Like, is there some guide or anything that helps them point towards general services versus, I don't know, does Kinko's still exist?
Not really.
Okay.
I think is the fair answer. I'd like to give you a better one, but I don't think there really is. I think they call general services and get a quote, and if they like it, they go ahead, and if they don't, they look elsewhere.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Supervisor Gabbard.
Just a caveat, Mike, and I know you'll have the answer, but towns, cities, and villages in the county have the tax bills printed. And we are charged on our levy for the real property lister, but we also are charged in the past on general services for printing those tax bills. And I know a lot of people don't care if they have the paper bill anymore, but you don't foresee telling us to go elsewhere to have those printed. You're still going to have those townships, those cities, and that get the bills printed through general services. Since we're already paying for it in our levy.
Well, there's no plan specific plan to change that. I mean, someone might look at that and say, is this the best way we're doing it? But we're not just going to leave towns on their own either. You know, and if we're paying for it on our levy, we're going to provide the printing. It may be more cost effective for us to print it outside. I don't know.
Okay.
That's something we'll look at.
You'll look at, but
Yeah.
for now, it still stands as it is in the past. We get levied for that as a service for those municipalities, and you'll keep up doing it, but maybe at some point it will be outsourced, who knows?
Well, and if it's outsourced, maybe it makes sense to take it off our levy and bill the towns directly, but it doesn't make sense to have, 12 towns all finding different printers
Correct,
to do a complicated job like that.
Because it's worked really well for
Yeah.
the municipalities with that 30-year employee. It was a slick system, so
Mhm.
I just wanted to make sure, since we are paying for the service,
Yeah.
we'll still get the service. It may change its perspective, I understand that, but that is your intent to keep it going that way for now.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Okay, you may continue.
The next budget is workers' compensation insurance, starting at page 131. Workers' compensation is, of course, something we're required to have. Workers' compensation coverage. Every employer of more than 10 employees in the state has to have workers' compensation coverage. Generally, it's an insurance product that you buy from one of the insurance companies. Local governments in Wisconsin are the only employer in Wisconsin who are allowed to self-insure for workers' compensation. So we have chosen to self-insure. We've looked at the costs of that several times. We definitely save money by self-insuring. Self-insuring means we kind of have our own little internal insurance company is the way I like to think of it, workers' compensation insurance. So it's a separate fund. It's an internal service fund. Again, no tax levy directly. It operates through charges to departments and has its own fund balance. We do have, although we're self-funded for claims, basically we collect premiums from the departments, which are based on payroll. A certain amount per $100 earned goes into this fund. And then we pay the claims out of the fund. We pay the administrative costs. Of course, we hired an administrator to actually adjust the claims. We hire an attorney when the claims have to go to hearing. And we hire someone else to do safety consulting. We hire someone else to look at the medical bills for workers' comp, because that's an obligation we have, and so forth. So there are a lot of administrative expenses as well. In addition, we do have what's called stop-loss coverage, which is actual insurance coverage from an insurance company for the very large workers' compensation claims, over $300,000, which can happen. As I mentioned yesterday, workers' compensation claims can fluctuate quite a bit. It's not, we could get hit with one $200,000 claim in a year and then not have a claim like that again for a while. We could have multiple $100,000 claims in 1 year. So it has fluctuated quite a bit. We determine how much in premiums to charge, and we do that kind of mimicking what an insurance company would do. The way insurance premiums for workers' comp are set are the state actually publishes rates. And they publish rates based on different categories of employees. Someone who's purely clerical and sits at a desk doesn't have the same risk of injury as someone working on the highway or in the sheriff's department or more active occupations. So they have a whole list of different job classes and different rates for those job classes. So we follow those, and we just use 4 job classes because there's one for municipal employees that's a great catch-all that applies to most of our people according to the state definitions. Anyway, we use those rates, but just like an insurance company would, we actually figure out how much we think we'll need, and we give a discount. The state premiums themselves would charge too much to departments because we don't really need that much because we have a pretty good safety record, so we figure a discount rate. So, and I've been doing that, and as I said yesterday, I messed it up this year. I don't know how, but I put in the wrong numbers. I had the right formula, I put in the wrong numbers, recently discovered. I expected the charges to departments to be much higher this year. And there are two reasons. One is last year, our fund balance was higher than it needed to be, and it had been for a while. So we said, we need to get this fund balance down. I don't need $2.5 million in this fund balance. We're going to take $500,000 out of the fund balance. So that's how we budgeted it for 2023. But last year, and to some extent this year, we've had higher claims than we've had the previous few years. So the trend is bad. We're seeing higher claims. I use a 4-year weighted average for claims to actually project them into the future year. So I'm looking at, 2022, 2021, 2020, and 2019, projecting that forward. So because of the way that works, we had a good year drop off and a bad year get into the analysis. So I knew we were going to need more money, and then we didn't have that $500,000 ability to subsidize. So I expected charges to departments to be more than double. Made an error. We've got the correction on your desks. We can take, I think it's a total, including the solid waste department, which isn't in the main budget, but a separate budget, $248,000. So, yep, that's a lot of money. There's a lot of fluctuation there. It's money we're paying to ourselves. It would stay in the fund balance regardless, but we thought about doing that, just keeping it the way it was and putting it in the fund balance if we don't have the claims. Decided that wasn't really fair to other departments and wasn't an accurate presentation to the county board, so thus you have that error correction on your desk. If you vote to approve that, we'll automatically change the number in all departments. The problem is there isn't an error in the workers' compensation budget itself that I'm talking about. It's just in what we charge departments. So if you look at the workers' compensation budget, go down to page, there is some labor and so forth in here because our risk manager has partially billed his labor to this budget because he spends most of his time, or a substantial portion of his time, I should say, managing it. But if you look at claim, oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. So the first line on page 134, insurance charges. That's what we're charging departments. It says $944,000. The problem is that's what we meant to charge departments, but we added up all the other department budgets. They were too high. It was $1.2 million. So that's the only reason we knew there was an error, is those numbers didn't close to match. So that's on line 63001. On page 134, 63001, insurance charges, you'll see it's $944,482. So that's the number it should be. Last year was only about $350 that we were charging, so we knew there'd be a big increase, but we need this amendment to match that number in terms of what's actually coming out of other department budgets. This is an internal service fund. It's kept in a separate fund balance. There's no real change in the operation. It's just looking at the claims and our actual expenses. As I said, we do have administrative costs as well as the stop loss premiums, which are quite a lot of money, but not increasing this year. We negotiated a 2-year contract for our stop loss coverage. So that kept that level, actually coming down a little bit from the prior budget because we negotiated a better price last year and got a 2-year lock on it. So any other questions about workers' comp?
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, there's no correction for lines 51100. You said you had to get an administrator and an attorney to work on workers' compensation. So you're paying an administrator and an attorney a total of $54,900?
No, we don't hire those in-house. We contract. So those aren't in wages. They're in contracted services. So the
Well, who's getting the $54,900 then?
our risk manager, which is an employee, and he handles our end of processing the workers' comp claims. He takes, the first reports of accident and injury with departments, and he works with departments on safety practices, trying to avoid workers' compensation claims.
Okay, and do you know what the percentage of claims that employees make that are denied?
I don't have that percentage. We get claims reports from them. I'm sure I could find that out.
Well, okay, if you don't have a percentage, do you know approximately how many were denied this year? Hundreds?
Not hundreds, no.
50?
No, I don't think we get that many claims in a year that are denied. Most of the claims aren't denied, but they're very low-level claims. That's a majority of them. Sometimes we just take a report and if there's no medical expense, then there's no real claim. If there's no medical expense and no lost time over 3 days, then there's no actual claim, but we take a report, so a claim file is established. When there are disputes, often they're in terms of the amount, not denied outright. So I'm trying to give you an honest answer, because I haven't thought of it that way recently. No, I doubt that it's more than a dozen or so a year that are denied outright.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask about how unique it is to have expenses looking this high in this department. I know last night you talked about using a 4-year weighted average, but I want to go into the budget book a little bit to look back and make sure I'm understanding the way the budget is presented here. So I'm going to look on page 136 at the very bottom at the expense total and then the WCI surplus deficit. And so if I look in 2020, I see the expenses were $760,000 with about a $360,000 deficit. So am I reading this that, we budgeted about $400,000 to be billed to other departments from this department. We incurred a lot more expenses than that, $750,000, and then that 360 becomes the deficit, and so on. Is that the right way that these numbers add up?
Well, this doesn't show you the budget, so
Right, but just
I believe it was budgeted for a deficit. In other words, we expected there to be a deficit, but wanted to reduce the fund balance. But
And
that
so
said,
if we had a crystal ball and could, and that's the tough part here, right? We're looking at the next 365 days, and we have no idea what claims are actually going to be there. But if we knew today that we were going to have, exactly what expenses, we would just match that on the revenue side. And when I look at that, then this what I guess whatever number we're actually at, 900 something thousand, or what actually isn't that far out of line with what the expenses have really been. And I guess I just had just wanted to comment that or make sure I had the understanding right, but make the comment that I don't think this is an absurdly high amount. I don't think this is I don't have the same trepidation I think that I initially felt last night with some of the comments about this. This does feel very much in line with the expenses and things that have really occurred. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have had in the past, not recently, but 8-9 years ago, I believe we had over $1 million in claims in 1 year. So that has happened in the past. The other thing is, as I said, we kind of calculate the premiums based in the same way the state sets out its premiums, and then insurance companies can give their clients, their customers, a discount if they think their customers have a good safety record, loss record. They calculate the expected losses, and they can charge them more than that, a premium if they've got a bad record. So even with the higher claims forecast this year, we're at a loss ratio discount of 62%. So we're still quite a bit less than the state average premiums.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Collard, do we have an EMR rating or a MOD rating for the county? Is that something that government agencies have to calculate when utilizing workman's comp?
We don't, but I kind of figure it internally, and that's just what I was referring to.
Okay.
We have a 62% rating this year, which is the highest it's been for a while, but still well under the state average.
You talked about the risk manager. I guess what steps are we taking to protect employees and prevent workman's comp claims? Are you just utilizing the risk manager to come in and look at departments, how are facilities, utilizing ergonomics and different machinery, that kind of stuff like that? Are you just passing that on to the risk manager, or is there something that we're doing internally to prevent accidents within the county?
Well, the principal effort really comes from department managers. So the situations are very different in facilities than they are in highway, than they are in the sheriff's office, et cetera. So the department managers all look at safety in their area. The risk manager really is there to support them, and he goes out and works with them and maybe identifies things where, they might not be aware of things they ought to be thinking about, tries to address issues, especially where he sees particular problems. We also have some consulting services available, through our insurance coverage, through the stop loss coverage that we use to provide some programs. We, have training videos and so forth that we have access to through that.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Hanson, was your question answered?
No, I just wanted to say, in apologies for oversimplifying, Director Collard. Thank you for catching the error, and I really hope that you're not beating yourself up over that.
I am, but thank you.
Please don't. Please don't.
Supervisor Stafford on Zoom. Supervisor Stafford? Supervisor Stafford? You have to unmute him, Julie? Oh. Supervisor Stafford, will you unmute yourself, please? Okay, he's gone off, so we did try to get him, but he went off. Not seeing any others, and no one else on Zoom?
I have one more to do.
Yes.
Okay, property liability insurance, starting at page 137. This is the budget through which the county obtains its main insurances for liability and property damage. Our liability coverage is provided by Wisconsin County Mutual Association, Wisconsin County Mutual Insurance Corporation, I should say, which is a company formed by the county's association essentially some time ago for liability insurance. We basically have a $100,000 deductible for liability. So obviously a lot of it still rests on the county, even for legal expense and so forth, but they do provide legal representation in cases of potential liability. For property insurance, we use a combination of different things through a broker that we retain to provide that. There is no real change to this budget from prior years, except that insurance premiums have been going up. I did reformulate the way in which we charge these premiums back to departments, just like workers' comp. It's a self-insured, quasi-self-insured situation, because here we have much more coverage. With a $100,000 deductible, I'm not sure if we call that self-insured or not, but it's partially self-insured. And then on some of the property damage, we self-insure for things like auto accidents and so forth in terms of the damage done to our property. We just pay those claims out of our fund if they're our fault, if we can't recover them from the other driver, for instance. So again, the risk manager handles, those claims, passing them on to the insurance companies, making sure the paperwork is done. And we have seen an increase, but not a substantial one, and showing very close to break even on this because we're happy where the fund balance is. It's a little over $1 million, $1.182 million in total for all the coverages and risk funds that we establish. Any questions?
Not seeing any questions. Thank you much.
Thank you.
We'll go to our human resources. Self-funded health and dental insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll find the human resources budget beginning on page 143. And we've got two major variances that I wanted to touch on today. The first is regarding an increase in labor. This budget includes a request to add one payroll and benefits specialist. It will also reduce one part-time administrative support position that we have. For a little bit of context, through the end of September last year, we had hired 204 employees for Winnebago County. Through the end of September this year, we've hired 280 employees. So with that type of increase, the payroll and benefits specialist position takes care of enrolling all of our employees in the various benefit programs that we have. So we've seen a significant increase in enrollments and benefit work that needs to be done based on the recruitments that we've done. And then also I had spoken about it at last year's budget time. Right now we've got one person who handles payroll for the entire county. So from a redundancy, capacity, and just resiliency standpoint, if there's any issue really that keeps me up at night, it's thinking about, missing payroll for our employees. The backup to that position right now would be this position supervisor, the payroll and benefits manager. But of course, payroll being a full-time job plus, then the manager is not able to do any of those tasks and work that she completes if she's filling in for payroll. So I think it's really important to add that capacity for the county and the safety net. And then the second major variance that we have in our budget, you'll see is on page 145. That's related to that data processing. And you heard Mike speak about how the Tyler Technologies dollars were coming out of finance, IT, and HR and being consolidated in the Department of Administration. So that's what that variance is for. It's coming out of the HR budget and moving over into administration. So if anyone has any questions specifically regarding the HR budget, I'd be happy to answer.
Supervisor Challenger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a lot of employees to hire in a year. That's like one person per day, more than one person per day. So kudos for stepping that up. I know that was a huge issue last year, and navigating, being flexible to navigate the changing employment marketplace, I think is really key to keeping the ship on course here. Can you talk a little bit about what changed in the last year, besides an extra position, to go from 200 to 280 over those first 9 months?
Well, certainly the capacity. Last year at budget time, we added a generalist position that was able to focus on recruitment. So having an additional person certainly is reflected, I think, in our results. In addition to that, we've been able, again, because we have a little bit more staff in our department, and because, some of the restrictions that had been in place during the pandemic were eased. We're seeing a lot more opportunities to attend job fairs, go out and try to physically recruit. We've got one coming up next month for specifically to UW Oshkosh and those employees affected by that situation. So we're able to get out, we're able to get more exposure, and I think that's really helped us.
Great. Do you have, so last year you talked that the benefits and payroll specialist, or the benefits and payroll area of hiring and maintaining the workforce was a real bottleneck. Are there other constraints that you're experiencing for hiring?
Well, I think we, both as the HR department as well as we as a board, I think we've addressed some of those bottlenecks, going back to compensation study and some of the things we've really tried to address. So certainly making wage adjustments, that helped because it put us more in line with market. We're optimistic that what we're proposing regarding PTO will also help us. From a staffing standpoint, I think I really try to be conservative when I'm asking for positions. In theory, based on, the results you've seen, if we add more positions, we should have even more results. I'd like to think that's true, but I'd also like to, I guess, be judicious and be very intentional about that. So I'm not sure if that's where your question was going or not, but.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of. I mean, I think that's, that is always the hard part as I, as I think back to the conversation with the clerk and the corporation counsel, that there is so much work. Of course, we're going to get it, we're going to pull things together and get it done. And I think part of it is, for me, looking at your department, probably for the rest of this board, we don't know what we don't know. Is 280 the maximum number of people we could have hired because that's the number of people coming in, or are there more job fairs that we can be attending? Are there more ways to be fulfilling the recruitment end of of it? And I think as I think about actually sort of all three of those departments I mentioned, the work is often in service of others, right? So you hire more people and it lets facilities or Parkview or whoever, health department get out and do their job without having to have people like flex over and cover this desk for a while, or, get this task done, things like that. And I really see it as especially your work as going to the core of what the county's mission is. And if we don't have people, we can't do mission. So I think, yes, it does answer what I was looking for. I guess if you could, lastly, if you could talk a little bit about the ways that your department has adjusted coming out of the pandemic, the ways that you're doing recruitment and adjusting to a labor market that is frankly shifting, faster than year to year.
Sure. Well, one, touching on your previous question, another thing to keep in mind, in addition to things like recruitment and payroll and benefits, the position, my team is also responsible for things like processing, FMLA paperwork, various leave paperwork. We handle either investigations, either for departments, or preferably we partner with departments when there's various issues that come up. So our focus isn't always singularly on recruitment, and that certainly can be a challenge because there's other things that come up from that standpoint. During the pandemic, we saw a move away from a lot of in-person interviews to more virtual interviews. We've continued that. We do both right now, but a lot of the workforce honestly has become accustomed and I think prefers virtual interviews. But one of the benefits that we've seen is that when I first started in HR, it was very rare that we would interview someone outside the immediate area. Occasionally you might have someone that was willing to drive from Madison or Eau Claire or something like that. to interview with us. But now because we can do that virtually, we've literally interviewed people across the country. Some of that is because maybe they used to live in this area, they're looking at coming back, they're familiar with us. But that, I think, has really helped us in our recruitment efforts as well. And I think based on position and department preference, we partnered with departments on, how they want to do those recruitments. We've also, I have to give a shout out to all the other departments. We've really partnered with them as far as having a meaningful piece in the process. Departments have taken on different aspects. We've trained departments and supervisors so that, for instance, if someone from HR isn't necessarily available to be with them during an interview, some departments will choose to do those interviews on their own, which then frees us up to spend time with maybe a department that doesn't do as many interviews and does want that support from our department. So we've certainly seen our process change over time.
Thanks. I really appreciate the last point that you touched on. I know in the past you've talked about like a desire to have more connection with certain departments, and I always assume that was the ones that are doing more hiring and have more employees and things like that. And I really appreciate the idea of trying to vest more of that into those managers. One last question, since I guess nobody else wants to give you a hard time today. Can you talk about the advertising piece of the budget? I think that's something that last year I think last year we had a small increase, and you talked about some of the ways that we've used that in the past with bus wraps or other Indeed advertising and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about how that's going, and if paid advertising is still sort of the good way to get that information out there?
I think it's a good way to supplement. There's a lot of advertising that we can do and that we do that is at no cost to us. There's a lot of professional organizations within the state that don't charge us to advertise our positions. We try to take advantage of that as much as possible. But we do face challenges, position specific or sometimes even department specific, and the increase in budget has helped us to be more aggressive in our advertising. I will say this year we've done more online advertising than things like bus wraps. We've had a little bit of conversation about if it would be effective to look at radio ads and some other mediums that we could tap into. We haven't chosen to go that route yet, but we have looked at some of those things. One example, Mike Elder in facilities, he had his plumber retire, I think it was in February of this year. That's been a really challenging position. We have one plumber for the county, and we're looking for a master plumber. So if there's anyone out there watching or listening that's a master plumber, we'd love to hire one. But that's an example where that increased budget in advertising has allowed us to advertise more. Now, we're still looking for someone, so the question could be, we haven't seen the results yet, but we have had some qualified applicants. We've had a few interviews, but that's really where we've tried to focus some of those dollars, are the ones that are really difficult to get. And in a case like that for Mike's department, if he doesn't have the expertise to do in-house, he's got to contract with someone outside, an outside vendor, and try to get someone to come in. And then there's always some challenges and costs associated with that. So we try to do as much as we can in-house and treat each department, look at their specific needs and problematic positions that they have to fill.
All right, thank you very much.
Supervisor Bureau on Zoom.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And a question for you, Mark.
Yes.
As I listened to your comments this morning, what I see is 204 hires up to 280 hires. I also recognize, that we're in a hiring environment that's very challenging. Retention is likely an issue. given the size of those numbers. And I want to talk about root cause and symptoms for a second. You know, the root cause obviously is the demographics and the competitiveness in the marketplace. And it seems to me, as I look at the budget overall, that the wage adjustments, you know, improving your benefits, you just mentioned PTO, addresses the root cause. Whereas hiring additional administrator really deals with the symptom. Is there consideration giving to deferring that hire or at least waiting 6 months into 2024 to see whether those other improvements make a dent in that 280?
First of all, let me back up. Back in August, we had gone to the Personnel and Finance Committee, and we added a project payroll and benefits specialist position at that time. And as explained to the committee, they had authorized some additional funds to hire it as a project, knowing that I was going to be bringing it forward as part of the budget. Part of the thought process of trying to get someone on board, which we did earlier, is the amount of training necessary to get someone up to speed to be able to process everything that this position's responsible for. We have a significant amount of work and busy time for payroll, both with end of year issues in December as well as issues in January. We have everything to close out from the previous year, all the new things to start, tax forms, all those various things that happen. So it's a very busy time. Last January this past January was very challenging. So we had wanted to get someone on board and get them trained so they would actually have the skill set and knowledge to help us out. This has been a long-term issue. It's not solely because we've increased hiring. We had looked at adding it as an amendment in the budget last year, and it didn't pass. Last year at that time, when I was asked about it, I said, honestly, I think I need both positions. However, with all the challenges that we've had with recruiting, I really felt that we needed to focus on recruitment overall for the county versus that internal payroll piece. So I don't think this is something, I think this is something that we have waited, so I can appreciate the question, but I think we've, I would submit that we've seen a need and a justification for it, and that's why we've included the request in the budget. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're not seeing any other lights? Thank you
All
for that
right.
part.
So then if you would turn with me to page 151, the next budget I want to speak to is the self-funded health insurance. This is an internal service budget. Again, similar to workers' comp, property and liability, where there is no direct tax levy charge. Revenues to this account come from charges to departments as well as employees. And Winnebago County is self-funded in our health insurance. We have not done an increase in our health insurance costs to employees since 2020. This year, we budgeted a small increase based on the trends that we've been seeing. That small increase, just for your point of interest, would be a 3.2%, which translates to $8.33 a month for a family plan. So the variations that you're going to see are some increases in revenue because of that increase. Also, some corresponding increases to expense based on trend. And then I just want to point out, if you take a look on page 155, under professional service, which is towards the bottom, it's in that bottom section, it's 55014 is the object code, professional service. You'll see that we've got a 100% increase for $6,500. And that's due to every other year we do an actuarial study where we work with the finance department and we bring someone in to, in essence, do an audit of this fund. And so next year, it's that time for us to do that again. And then just so you're aware, Mike, you talked about stop-loss insurance and some other programs. We do carry stop-loss insurance for large medical claims. So claims over 300,000, the county's insured against. And then each year, we do have a benefits consultant. We review plan design, cost containment, different recommendations to try to keep costs under control. I think overall, we've done a pretty good job with that, considering that we haven't had to adjust rates since 2020. We do focus on wellness and prevention through our employee wellness clinic that we partner with the school district and the city through. And overall, this is certainly a valuable benefit that we offer to our employees. We are looking to draw down our fund a little bit. You'll see we would take about 615,000 out of our health insurance fund. Right now, our fund balance, when I looked yesterday, we were at about 5.2 million in our fund balance, which we think is, a little bit high. We're projecting, again, it's a little bit based on trend, but at the end of next year, we would bring that down a little bit, just under 4 million. And again, some of that's dependent on how the rest of this year plays out.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you have a target fund balance for this?
I don't know that we have anything written. I think we take a look really at where the trend has taken us, and we don't want the fund balance to grow too much because, again, we're charging departments every year, plus we're charging employees. So we want to be somewhat judicious and not take more than necessary. But one of the things that we've tried to do is have enough buffer there that we don't have wild swings in premiums. And so far, where we've been has worked out well for us. But no, I can't tell you we're looking at X amount. It really kind of fluctuates a little bit based on what we're seeing as far as overall costs every year.
Is it, would it be unwise for this fund to be, just given the what range that fluctuation could be, would it be unwise for this fund to be, let's say $500,000?
Yes, I would not want to see it that low. I mean, I would think we'd certainly want to be, in the millions, but again, not too much. And when I say not too much, I mean, obviously a few million is a lot of money, but when you look at the expenses that come out for claims each year, we may have $17, $18 million in claims. So we need a little bit of a buffer, but again, not too much.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the last couple of years, we've had $3 million of fluctuation, so having some buffer is good. And then lastly, is it common practice to have a fund balance policy for a self-funded health insurance program, or is that not really a standard thing?
I'll maybe defer that one to Mike, since I think he brought the self-funded back into being.
I would say, in my experience, looking at other counties and cities, it's probably very unusual to have a formal fund balance policy. But it's very important to understand what's needed. And when you ask consultants, which I have many times in the past, although not recently because I've come to understand it pretty well, mostly they will tell you something like you should have 25% of annual expense on hand. So if we're looking at $18 million, that's $4.5 million. So that's a rule of thumb, generally accepted in the industry by people who work with these. So we're over that amount. I'm grateful we're over that amount. We can take a little bit out. We shouldn't take too much out. It can be a disaster if you run out of money. You get into all sorts of issues. The first year, when I started at Sheboygan County, a few months into my job as HR director there, they came to me and said, the accountant came and said, we're $1 million short in our health balance. We're in the red by $1 million. That was no fun. You don't want to be in that situation because it can be very awkward, especially because some of the money is contributed by employees. So it's important to keep that fund separate, not use it for anything else, because part of the money was contributed by employees for health insurance. But if you keep it well managed, there's absolutely no question you save money in the long run doing that.
Okay. Thanks. I really appreciate diving into that. I think it's really important to maintain that, like a level, or not necessarily flat, but like a, moderate increases in health insurance. I think that goes to some of those other points about employee retention. If all of a sudden we have to do a 15% jump in, in insurance premiums, that may be, the thing that gets people to leave. So thank you for diving into that. Appreciate it.
Supervisor Eisen.
Oh, thank you. Action survey taken.
I don't know that we've necessarily ever done specifically a satisfaction survey on the plan itself. I do know that when we had a narrow network, and so what I mean by that, before we were self-insured, when we were looking at, let's say, a network where you could only have Ascension, for instance, as your in-network, or Aurora, or ThedaCare, anytime we made changes that way and changed networks, that was very disruptive to employees, and any employees that had to change networks, we had very negative feedback about that.
I can understand all that,
Yep.
but is there, are you keeping your ears to the pulse of what people have to say about the plan? From my perspective, of course, the premium is increasing even as a self-funded program. But there are various ways. The county board used to be presented by the consultant with various options annually to conserve on the premium. This board, for half a dozen years, has not seen a consultant, has not had the opportunity to tune in to the plan. There are various high deductible options that many of the insureds would like to take advantage, particularly with the tax deductible savings accounts and various ways of taking tax deductible advantages of their plan. Could you share with us the procedure that was taken for 2024 going forward? Now, the plan's renewal date is what? January 1st? Is that?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Our plan year runs on a calendar year basis.
Sure.
I'm not familiar with what presentations may have occurred in the past, and I'm certainly not opposed to having our consultant come in and speak to the board regarding the plan, or personnel and finance, or whatever would be appropriate, to explain the plan in greater detail and what we've got. I do know that we've kept the plan design very similar for several years. And when I say plan design, I'm talking about, we're not in a high deductible plan that would afford a health savings account, for instance. You know, there's pros and cons, you know, to every option. And I think right now, we have not heard a groundswell of, you know, issues from employees regarding the plan design. If we were to make a change, obviously the plan design would look very different. Right now, we've got a fairly low deductible that the employees have to meet first before all the co-insurance kicks in. Under high deductible, yes, there might be some tax savings available to set aside money into a health savings account, but then typically those deductibles are much higher than what we offer right now. So it's always a give and take, and depending on a employee's particular health situation or health needs, they may come out ahead
How
or
many
behind.
vacancies are there in the county?
The information that's going to PNF for this month, at the end of September, I think it was 174 full-time. So, I don't have that right in front of me, but it's well north of 100 vacancies that we have right now.
Say again?
Well north of 100 vacancies.
100?
Yes, more than 100, yes.
Okay. That means we are budgeting for family plans for 100 employees, padding our budget.
When we budget vacancies, we
You
do
budget vacancies, you budget at family.
We do, yes.
And what is the average family rate?
The cost to the county is roughly $23,000.
So we're budgeting $250,000 for health insurance in padding our estimates.
And I'll just comment, the reason why we budget that is obviously we don't know what, if any, health insurance option a newly hired employee will take. So that's why we budget for the most expensive option.
Well,
We
we'll
do
get
have-
the money back at the end of the year, that's okay.
And we do have a couple departments that do an adjustment. So Parkview, I don't know what their adjustment is, but based on the number of vacancies they have, they will just do an across-the-board deduction, recognizing that they have so many vacancies. So it won't necessarily be per position, but they will back out some dollars trying to recognize that.
I'll take that back. It's not 230,000, it's 2,300,000.
Well, and if I can give you a little bit further information on that, as Mark said, one example would be Parkview, which has the most vacancies, and a lot of them are part-time rather than full-time. But if you look at the budget at page 341, there's a line item in the Parkview budget, 51250, that's fringe turnover savings. And it's $2 million. So of that 2.3 million, right there, we've taken out $2 million, which we basically taken back out of their budget because they won't be spending that $2 million in health insurance coverage. We have a similar deduction for, it's more than 2 or 3 departments. We have it in the sheriff's department, we have it in the highway department, we have it in the facilities department now, we have it in public health. It seems like every year we add a department that we take a turnover savings adjustment to in order to tighten up the budget so the budget is more accurate, closer to what we really think will happen, knowing that there are going to be vacancies in any sizable department.
Well, since you've brought up the subject of turnover savings, I might introduce an observation that in the sheriff's department, he's budgeting $250,000 for wage turnover savings, but he's budgeting $250,000 Also, for fringe, typically fringe benefits relate to about 50% of what the wage is. If we look at each of the departments and what the wages are and what the fringes are, fringes are about half in addition to a wage. However, when we get to Parkview is budgeting $2 million for wage turnover savings, and they're budgeting $2 million for fringe. So I think that there's some homework that needs to be done, and perhaps we'll cross this again when Parkview comes up for discussion. But I think that there needs to be some fine tuning.
Supervisor Panzer.
Yes, it might have been answered. I wanted to know what the Cobra cost was on a family. I believe it's $1,900 a month, right around there.
I think it's a little more than that. I think it might be around 2,200.
Okay. The other part of my question is, do you offer single, employee plus one, and family?
We do, yes.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually think Paul Eisen and I might be on the same train of thought here, but let me present this in a little different way. I'm pleased to see that there's a relatively small increase in the health insurance costs. Years ago, we used to be insured with different companies. Do you have any idea, given the current medical situation in this country and the increased costs, where we would be looking at for insurance premiums if we were not self-insured? Now, there's a little speculation there, obviously, but the trend.
When we speak with our consultants, it's not unusual for companies to have double-digit percentage increases in their health insurance costs.
That's where we are now. It used to be single digits, 6%, 8%.
Right, and we've been 0, 0, 0, and now this year 3.2. So from that standpoint, we're doing much better than what they're seeing over their book of business.
So this change from private insurance, health insurance, to self-funded health insurance has really reaped benefits for this county.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Supervisor Panzer.
Yes, I forgot to ask this. Is it a ratio of 80-20 or 90-10? What is the ratio?
80-20.
Okay. That's high.
Then, if we could quickly turn to page 157. This is similar to the last budget, except this is our self-funded dental insurance. Much smaller account. We have not increased our dental insurance premiums since 2017. Again, just based on trend, we are anticipating a slight increase for next year. So this premium is going up 5%, which equates to 50 cents a month for a family plan. This is another internal service budget. So again, the revenues come from charges to departments as well as to employees. Our fund balance right now is around $723,000. We are projecting by the end of next year to have a slight increase, again, just kind of based on claims of around $749,000. And again, I would just point out on page 160, under contractual services, kind of towards the top of the page, You'll see professional service, 55014. That's another one of those line items where there's $2,500. It's a 100% increase. When we do the actuarial study every other year, we do it on both the health fund as well as the dental fund. So next year is our time to do that, and we'll be doing it on the dental fund as well. So I just wanted to point that out to you.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our health clinic, I guess, would say that's a model. Talking to other counties that, for example, Brown County does not have that same health clinic that we share with the school district and others. Has a dental clinic been looked at by the county, something similar to the health clinic? I know that there's plans out there with different entities similar to what we have with the health clinic. Has that been an option or something that you in your department have explored as a savings or a possibility at all?
I'm not aware that we've ever looked at a dental clinic. I don't know that we'd have the same potential for savings that we would on the health insurance, but I don't know if we've ever even.
A long time ago, I looked at it in a different county. The cost of equipping a dental clinic is astronomical. So it really put it way out of the price range for anything the county could do internally.
And nothing with, there's certain providers in the area that are large and I apologize for this, our employees can go to any dentist they want right now. Is that the way we're set up?
Well, there is a network, but it's a wide network,
Okay.
so you'd be hard pressed to find a dentist that isn't covered in some regards. And there's different levels of coverage. If they're, in network, out of network, there will be some type of coverage, but if you go to one that's in the dental network, there's a higher benefit.
Sure. Yep. Just know that that's an option out there for folks with different agencies and especially the larger ones that that's something that other counties and municipalities have done. So thank you very much.
Supervisor Challenger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Same question about fund balance policy, noting that this fund balance is about roughly equal to our projected expenses.
Yes, again, no formal policy. Really kind of the same philosophy, I think, is because we are charging departments as well as employees. We don't want it to be too high or too low. We haven't had increases. That's part of the reason why we haven't done increases for so long. We did see a dip in claims due to the pandemic. I think there's probably a lot of people that didn't go physically to some of those places. And I think that's why we're kind of anticipating that trend to continue to increase a little bit as people get more comfortable going back in person. So that's really probably the driving factor of the small increase. But we do want to, that's kind of why we've used the fund balance in the past as well to kind of keep it where it is.
Okay, we actually haven't applied fund balance for a very long time from this fund. And I'm looking back at the actuals all the way back to 2015, and it looks like every year we've ended with either zero or slightly positive, like $5,000, $10,000.
Yep.
And so I think what I'm going for is like. It feels like having 90% of the expenses in the fund balance is very sufficient. And if we continue on this trend, it feels like it'd be very hard to imagine, using a significant chunk of that. Maybe this is something that helps us like stave off increases in the future or something like that. But let's say it doesn't. Let's say every year we're continuing to add, $50,000, $10,000. Maybe another year where people put off dental work and we get another $150,000. But at what point does it become too big? And is there like a point where we turn back and say we're actually going to ask employees to pay less because our fund balance is too high? Or does that not work because because that's not a long-term solution?
Normally what we'll do in cases like that is, and we do it with health insurance too, where there's years that we are planning to use some fund balance. So if we saw a significant increase in our dental claims. We've got a good fund balance right now. Probably the preferred option would be to hold premiums consistent and draw that balance down versus lowering premiums, because typically costs will go up each year, or there'll be other things. But yes, we're very stable, and that's one of the reasons why we haven't had adjustments for 6 years. And hopefully with an adjustment like this and where our balance is, can't predict, but maybe we can go another 6 years or more without having to make adjustments to our dental premium.
Okay. And then lastly, did you think about doing that this year, not raising the premiums, and having the fund balance cover that?
We did, and again, we meet with our consultant. We take a look at trends, we take a look at projected expenses, and there was enough projected expense that we thought that a small increase now would help prevent larger increases in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Eisen.
Yeah, a point of personal privilege. Could we take a 10-minute comfort break?
As soon as everyone's done talking, that's my plans.
I'm done if you're done.
So at this time, we'll take a 10-minute break. There's coffee, there's rolls, there's soda back there, there's water back there.
Recording stopped.
Oh my God, Batman.
The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we are ready to go back into session. And the first thing on the agenda will be finance. We'll have the finance director.
Thank you, Chairman. So finance starts on page 165. We have a little bit of revenue that we charge out to other departments. We charge out a little bit of revenue to other departments, mostly solid waste, for that $47,000 in revenue. Otherwise, then we get into the expenses, with which has been addressed a couple of times, is right now finance has 6 people. We are requesting adding a management analyst. That is the majority of the increase in salaries and fringe benefits. There is some due to the labor that was done earlier this year and into the raises for next year. I'll get more back into the management analyst as I go through the rest of this first. We do have a little bit of increase in the, on page 167 into subscriptions. That $8,000 is due to we bought a debt book software package, which takes care of the GASB passed the subscriptions for leases, which is GASB 87. And this year is GASB 96 has to be done by the end of the year. That is dealing with IT subscriptions. So we finished up with the leases for 2022, and for 2023 we will be finishing up for the subscriptions. The audit was done last year. They found nothing wrong with the way we did the leases using the software. And next year they'll be auditing the subscriptions per GASB. As you can see in the data processing and professional services, that is what went down and was moved into the Department of Admin. So them are the changes in there. So I'm going to go back to the management analyst that finance is requesting. Right now, finance, as I said, has 6 people in it. This would be 7 positions. When I got to the county, I was a little surprised that finance wasn't truly finance. It was finance. It was the treasurer's office. It was people throughout all over the county at different departments. There is roughly between 17 and 20 people that are doing finance / accounting work in the county. The goal I had when I got here was to try to start having meetings with all of the accounting personnel and meet regularly so we could start working as a team for the county, trying to learn each other's jobs a little bit so we have a little bit of redundancy and backup. Then as I got into it more, I found out that there was something called ARPA, which became Spirit, which became then the Neighborhood Improvement Fund, the Opioid Fund, the payments to the municipalities for $145,000, and the time that I had became non-existent to be able to start trying to do that. So this position, either they're going to take over some of the things I'm doing, or I want them to be trying to look at be a grant facilitator for the county, so bring in all the finance people and all the people that do grants together and be a facilitator for that. Also be a finance facilitator, or I'll take one of them 2 roles and they'll take on some of my responsibilities. So that is what I'm asking for that position.
You said or grant writer. At one time, I know that was put in as for grant writer, but.
Well, both. Either I'm going to be doing that, or they will be. One of us will be doing one or the other or both. So it's what I feel that if I continue doing the other things, they'll be doing that. If I give them some of the things I'm doing now to finish them up, then I'll take on that other responsibility.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During the ARPA requests several months ago, the county exec had requested a similar position. I don't recall the exact wording, but as I recall, it was an analyst position, and that was declined. Is this the same position that the county exec was asking for, or the same focus?
The county exec was that is going to be working for me, is going to be working for finance, and going to be doing things that the exec may ask of me, but this is going to be under my direction for the focus that I just explained.
So what you're saying, they are actually two different positions?
From my perspective, yes, it's a position I am asking for.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Supervisor Challenger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The new position, well, first of all, let me say this. I think your department is under-resourced. It's an incredible amount of process that's been added by those, 3 big programs to take on. And this position feels like it helps solve one of the themes I think that keeps coming back, whether it's committee level, budgets, or whatever. And I'm sure it's something that is taking a lot of staff time that this board doesn't see. And I'm wondering if you can talk in kind of specifics about some of the examples that this position could help us make more informed decisions about. And I'll start by sharing. I know at the aviation committee meeting we have talked about the value of having in-house staff do custodial services and things like that. We just talked about the general services question of printing stuff in-house or outsourcing. Are those the types of things that this person would be able to help solve?
Potentially. I guess I'm looking at it right now is I've got too many hands and too many pots. I need to try to be able to focus on, right now I've heard I don't know how many different discussions regarding fund policy. I've been talking with Kerber Rose, which is an audit/consultant firm in Oshkosh. I've also been talking to the GFO way of trying to figure out and come up with a new unassigned general fund and general fund policy for the county. I have promised the P&F committee I will have something to them in the December meeting. So that is something I'm working on in my back of my mind. That's a big group of the fund policies, but I don't want to stop there. I want to start looking at all of the funds. We've got 33 funds. That's a lot. Even the auditors have said that's a lot of funds. We've got special revenue funds. Some of these things are things that we've never had before, the county has never had. So they're all, a lot of new auditors are still even trying to figure out how to maintain and take care of some of these. So either this person is going to be doing some of that, or I'm going to be hopefully doing that, and they're going to be doing the NIFG and the other things. We also had an upgrade for Tyler. We went up 3 huge versions from I don't even know what it was, 2011 to 2021.8. There are so many things that we are not using. There's grant software in Tyler that some departments are using eCivis, some departments are using something else. So the thing is, what is the best for the county to use? And unless I can figure out time or get this position to corral all the finance people in all the different departments that have certain expertise on grants that I don't have, I don't know if one system's better than the other right now, and I don't want 27 different systems for each department doing something differently. So there's a lot of fragmentation, per se, is I think what I've heard when I got here with the silos, and just trying to wrap your arms around getting this together and using similar systems talking. I know Mark has talked several times about HR, and Mike has brought that up with trying to do onboarding through Tyler and a lot of these other things through Tyler that right now they're swamped with that. But I'm somebody who is very adept and likes working on software and IT stuff. So it's just finding the time, and either this position is going to help, and hopefully I can find somebody who understands grants to work with the rest of that, and I can work on the IT and the fund policies and the other policies that the county doesn't have up to date. A lot of the ones I'm finding are from 2016 that was wrote by Chuck, or maybe rewritten, but still has Chuck's language in there. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thank you. I've served on the Oshkosh Long Range Finance Committee for for 5-6 years, and I know we're constantly, reviewing the litany of fund policies and other accounting practices, and they have a policy that every couple of years those things are being at least looked at, just make sure that those are still where we want to be. So I do recognize that that's a lot of, that is some latent work that you're picking up. I guess I'll just ask, and hopefully you're not going to take too much on yourself as you answer this, but with this analyst position, do you feel like you have the resources to do the expansive work that finance needs to do to bring those 17 finance people around the county under one working team umbrella, and to do the coordination of the grants and all those things? I think all those aspirational things are really important, and I want to make sure that I'm doing what I can to help you realize those goals.
I definitely think this position will get us a step closer. What we need to do in the executive admin office, as I've heard several times here, is we need to stop putting out fires. The fires keep popping up. We need to, the processes, the policies, the procedures, it takes time to get them things in place, and we're getting them there, and getting certain things to move this process forward. So yes, I think this position would definitely help free up some time to get them processes and policies in place. So that would hopefully move us forward, yes.
Okay, so, but helping move it forward isn't like, filling out the whole pie, right? I mean, how much short of the whole pie do you think your team's capacity would be with this position added in?
With this position added and another year under our belt, I would say we would be getting into the 85 to 90% range. But you have to remember, I haven't been here yet a year. We just hired Billy, who's doing AP and AR. She's been here 1 month now. Leslie's been here since March, I think it was. So we got a lot of people learning a lot of new stuff, and that's why I want to start trying to bring the other people in the county, finance people, together with us, because they've got expertise that I know they have. It's just finding their time to come and meet with us to get that expertise spread.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, why wouldn't you want to, call this guy a generalist? Why are we going to an analyst? I mean, a generalist is going to be able to do just about everything in there. An analyst, we lean back on things like the innovative analysts and whatever else. We're not really looking at a total grant writer. We're looking at somebody that knows something about grants, somebody that knows something about the accounting system and government.
I mean, we hired Leslie as a financial analyst, so that's kind of set the bar with the job descriptions and the way things have been in other departments with an analyst. So it's a title. I'm looking for a position, and I can get together a job description of what I want them to do, which is what I told you. That's what I feel they should be doing. So I can work with HR and come up with whatever title you want, but that was the title, that was what we came up with, because Leslie was hired as a financial analyst. This one we had as a management analyst to try to separate GAAP versus grants and policies.
I wish you luck. But thank you.
Supervisor Hran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a couple of questions. You brought up the Spirit Fund. And my two questions are, where are we with that? And can the county board get regular updates as to what we have gone about funding and what the how much money is left, and then the prospects for the remainder of that?
Yes, I do an update for the ARPA Commission that meets, well, we've been meeting more frequently, but monthly. And I can do an update for the board if you want to. There's Amendment 1 that is being put in by Supervisor Eisen, I believe, on the Spirit Fund and an appendix to be added to the budget to describe that. Currently, we had 33.3 million that went into the Spirit Fund. Currently, 10.2 million has been approved by resolution. So there is 23 million that is still left that has not been approved. So we've spent, I think, roughly close to a little over $3 million has been actually spent. The majority of that is on the sheriff radios. And there are, I believe, one passed City of the Amro Community Center that passed at the last board meeting. And there's 5 more, I believe, that is going to be put forth to the ARPA Commission to then be brought to the board at the November meeting.
Yeah, I understand that, and I find it absolutely fascinating going to those meetings because you do get to understand a little bit about the process and knowing that it is not being taken lightly. I'm not convinced that the entire county board understands that. And that's why I am asking if we can have a review at the county board meetings.
I will, I guess, go to the chairman, and if he puts it on the agenda, then I will be here to present something on that.
I just think for the benefit of all of us, that would be advantageous. Thank you.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We spend a lot of time here talking about a lot of big items. I'm going to kind of flip that on its head here and talk about one of the smaller items on here. I see with your legal notices that in the last few years, we've actually gone down like 90% on publishing legal notices. One of our big things is transparency in government, and I'm wondering, have the requirements changed that much? And if they have or haven't, how are we notifying the public on legal notices now that it's so drastically down?
I believe that they have changed substantially, that you can post online versus having to print or post in the paper, and that is what costs the money, is paying the Oshkosh Northwestern, the Herald, whatever other papers we may have been paying in the past. But online posting is becoming more and more the norm, which does not cost the same amount as doing paper.
I just want some clarification on that, because that's a big one.
Some of the mics aren't working when I push you to speak in, so you'll have to speak up. So far, we've heard all of you, but so if your light isn't on, it's not working. I see Supervisor Gabbert's not on, but she'll be the next one to speak.
Quick, easy
Tom?
Land and water, sheriff, airport, Parkview Health Center. They still will be able to write for grants out of their department. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you're just doing an internal management analyst, but they're good at what they do for getting grants, so I don't want that cloudy. That would continue?
They're good at what they do, and I want the rest of us to learn from that. Yes.
Supervisor Bender.
I heard you say that there was $33 million in Spirit Fund. Where's the interest going? I mean, I know there's over $1 million in interest. Is that going to the general fund, or is that staying with the Spirit Fund?
Right now, that's in the Spirit Fund, 1.574 million as of the end of September.
So we'd have a total basically of 34.5 million.
Well, we spent 3 point something, but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then Supervisor Burrow.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Director, a question for you. From a constituent perspective, we are
certainly seeing a slowing economy,
concerns regarding
inflation and cost pressures, et cetera.
I heard you state that you have a relatively young team that probably
isn't
fully up
fully
a
up a
learning
learning
curve
curve yet.
So my
Can you turn your
question
volume
is,
down a little
what
bit?
happens
Please?
if you
You're-
don't add
Add
this position this year?
this year.
Supervisor Burrow, can you turn your volume down a little bit? You're echoing in the background.
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
Okay, if you want to start over,
I
please.
I apologize.
Do you want to
Okay,
start?
you still hear me okay?
Well, the echoing's
All right.
worse now, but we can hear you.
Okay, is that better?
That's better, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Director, from a constituent perspective, the economy's slowing, inflation, pressure on pricing. I hear it from a lot of companies. We are adding a staff position in this budget. You also mentioned a young team that's coming up the learning curve. I think 3 people that are a year or less. A question regarding this position. What happens if we don't add it in 2024?
From my perspective, if you don't add it, there'll be an awful lot of things that'll just drop to the wayside and won't get done. Whether we get a general fund policy, that might get done, but do we look at doing a health and dental fund policy? Do we get all the procedures up to date and written and things in place for changing the processes and making them better? Them I do not see with a time frame. We probably will not get any IIJA funds or IRA, because right now I'm not sure who's looking at them or what needs to be done and how to qualify for some of them. They're talking about billions, if not trillions of dollars that I am not aware of that the county has gotten any money from that yet.
Great, thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other questions. I thank you very much. Next will be information and technology for technology replacements. Supervisor Cox, can you push your button and maybe yours will go off? Maybe that'll help. No, I can't get it.
I don't get it done.
Just hold on. Julie's gonna try something here.
I should get it done on this shutdown. There we go.
No,
No, that doesn't do it either.
just go ahead, Patty.
Just a minute.
Just go ahead, Patty.
Ready? All right, we're still, good morning. I'm Patty Francoeur, Director of IT. My budget starts around page 170. I have 2 funds. The first one, 022, is basically our operational, so my people, their benefits, their wages, their training, their operational supplies, and a few contracts that relate specifically to IT. Probably our biggest variance that pops out is in professional service, 50,000. That was given to us for 2023 to initiate an effort to go more paperless throughout the county. So we've been working with all of the departments to see how we can assist with getting rid of the physical storage of all the paper, digitizing so that they can use it in different ways, and helping with retention as well, with some of the old papers. That was a one-time thing, so that will be not part of 2024. And then the second account, 023, is our technology replacement, and that is based completely on inventory throughout the county, where we keep track of all the devices being used, all the infrastructure, and we put an age to everything so that it's replaced timely. 2024 will show the start of what happened with the COVID money, where we bought more than 500 laptops, which means 500 laptops are going to age out at the same time. So to reduce the spike of that, we are looking at all of the users, and we're trying to take the power users that are much more heavily utilizing a laptop and do those first, and maybe a year earlier. And then we're taking the users who are now using it more like a desktop and, you know, not as hard as a laptop, and pushing those out. So we're spreading out that spike for the technology replacement fund. So in my department, I have 18 people, currently have one opening, which we're in progress of interviewing and hopefully extending an offer by the end of the week. We have 3 distinct areas. We have a help desk where someone is answering the phone during our county business hours, which we consider 7:30 to 4:30. We have the in-house developers, which are assisting with applications purchased or writing them in-house. One of the big ones we're doing right now is responding to HR's, change to PTO. So that is done in-house. And then we have the network team, and those guys rotate on call 24/7, 365 for our 24-hour operating facilities like Parkview and Sheriff's Office and part of Human Services. I guess the biggest variance in the 023 account would be the Microsoft licensing, and we are in the process of converting to from everything on premise to in the cloud. It is expensive, it is super complicated, it is a long process to get there securely and productively. We could flip the switch, but that would not make very good productivity for the users. So taking our time to work through getting us converted. I guess any specific questions?
Supervisor Challenger.
Let's switch to the cloud is a big one. Can you talk a little bit about what staff time, what have you done with your staff to support that transition? And then does that continue, how long does that continue before the transition is made?
Well, I mean, a lot of what we're doing is learning as we go. We have definitely had some training classes. We have lots of online tutorial assistance. But we're training as we go, and then we are providing training to the end users, and that is somewhat planned and then somewhat by request. And we'll probably continue that as long as needed for the end users. For us, it is consuming a lot of FTEs right now to do this. And once we get through it, it'll be support and training for the end users and learning the next thing that changes on us.
Yeah, like it never ends, right? We're always hiring new people and those people need to be trained. So when somebody's hired in their onboarding process, is there a Office 365 SharePoint or whatever? Is there training for that at onboarding, or does that need to be specifically requested independently?
There's online things available. We have on our intranet lots of resources and links to training that is available for self-service, I guess. And then we have the help desk, and if there are requests for formal training, we have a training room where we can bring people in. We've done one-on-one up to classes of 12 to 15.
I think the training piece is really important. In my own experience, I could probably take an entire support user just to help me not mess up with all this stuff. Doing it right is so important, especially as you're building from scratch. Because undoing bad data, storage practices, or whatever, having people not use the systems because they're not trained doesn't help with your goals. So I think that's really good to hear that that's like a focus. It's it's not my world, but I feel like we have three end users.
Help desk?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if that's enough to support this transition, or to do that. But the other question I had was, you touched on the $50,000 for the paperless consultant. I know last year in the budget, or in your requested budget, that was a position that you had requested, right? That was then converted to a one-year contract or whatever. Can you talk more about the results of that, or are there things in this budget that support the findings of what we did in 2023?
Well, it started as a position request, was declined, and we were given $50,000 to do paperless initiative. We surveyed and worked with all of the departments, especially ones we know that were already scanning and digitizing documents. From that survey result, there's no easy way to, let's say, get a temp person to come in and try to scan, and because to index an item, when you scan it, you have to be able to look it up again. And somebody has to be able to look at a document, understand what it is, understand what the fields would be. So we didn't feel that route would be a good use of funds. So from the survey, we realized the people that are already doing a lot of the scanning have old equipment. And we've replaced, I think it was 12 scanners with updated scanners. We still have a little bit of funds left, so we're doing another survey to see if there's any interest in large format scanning. And rather than buy a huge machine for that and maintain it when it might be a infrequently used item, we may outsource that service if there's interest in that with this fund. And another thing is we're going to go around one more time and actually offer if a department could utilize a second scanner or something like that, and try to utilize the funds up as best we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Supervisor Defferding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll have to forgive me because I'm not an IT person, so forgive my naivety here. But is that I've noticed that just across all the departments, we're seeing the computer licensing fees go up. Is that from that transition to the cloud? Is that what that's from?
Yes, it was decided we historically have not been a chargeback department, but it has been decided to move those costs to the appropriate departments to realize, reflect, I guess, where the funds really are being utilized. So that licensing is charged back to the departments.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Supervisor Swan.
Hi, Patty, that computer licensing charge for 227,671, is that going to be an annual charge that goes forward every year?
The cloud is a subscription.
Will it stay, why, is that because Microsoft is moving away from, buying a piece of software and running it for 5 or 10 years? Are they requiring you to go to 365 like that?
It is pretty much an industry push to go to the cloud for a lot of things. Microsoft will end support on a lot of the on-premise stuff.
What's the cost variance, let's say over 10 years, 227 a year for 10 years, that's a lot of money. So, if you were to buy the software, if that was still an option, this is going to cost a lot more than the old way we did things, right?
Well, there is a little bit of an offset, and we're still working through that. So we have some pretty hefty servers on premise when we have to serve the applications from here. So as we can retire those are things we don't have to replace or maintain, pay support. Also, Microsoft licensing is also super complicated. And we are picking out what items we already are paying for that do the same function. There's some security things that are covered, and once we can realize the function in the cloud, we can eliminate it on-prem. So that will be a savings too. So there will be a little offset compared to just looking at on-prem and cloud.
That support that you would otherwise forfeit, is that really valuable? I mean, are you using that a lot that they give?
Well, I mean, the main thing you get is security updates.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
think
like
it's
we're
a-
calling them
I
for
think it's a
help.
huge racket myself. I really do.
Agreed.
And it's a lot of money that we're going to be putting forth to maintain this, this 365. I guess you really don't have any options though, given the way the company's trending. They're tying their, you know, their support to forcing you to upgrade to this system. That's really putting a lot of burden on a consumer, I think. Thank you.
Supervisor Challenger.
Thank you. One other question. So you mentioned that historically this hasn't been a chargeback department. I forgot to ask, you know, it seems like that is the trend of a lot of this year's budget is finding the true cost centers. Has there ever been any discussions about doing chargebacks with the other services that IT is providing to departments? So if you have to go out and fix something at Parkview, that there is a service charge that is borne by Parkview, so or as you've gone through the priority-based budgeting stuff, is that something that might become apparent through that process? Like, I'll just use Parkview. What does it cost to maintain the information technology at Parkview?
That has been discussed before. It's a hard thing to do, and at best, it's a good estimate. We do have a ticketing system where we keep track for the PAR or DMG chargebacks. So we keep track of work we do time-wise for departments that way. And the developers have also a project tracking time function, but overall, we don't have like 100%, but it has been brought up.
Yeah, we have had some discussions of that, but I would say we're kind of just starting those discussions. And I don't foresee us going to a complete chargeback model, which can be done, but I don't really foresee the entire department being charged back to other departments. But I do see us looking at whether it would make sense to charge more of what they do to departments. And so we're looking at kind of a leasing model where, you know, the number of laptops and other devices a department has will determine a particular charge. Instead of having the departments buy the laptop up front, just kind of coming up with an annual charge for having a laptop or having another piece of equipment that would incorporate, you know, the purchase price, the maintenance cost, and, you know, maybe something like the help desk, you know, maybe something like the software costs associated with the network and with the user, and something like the software or some costs associated with even the network potentially could be included in that. So those are the discussions we want to have, but we're a long way from a conclusion on that. But we are planning really over the next year before the next budget to look at that and come up with a little bit of different chargeback method that will rely, and we haven't really covered the technology improvement fund, but since we'll be looking more on funding that on a yearly basis, you know, we won't need the kind of fund balance. We're planning to use up a good deal of that fund balance this year and just apply it to the budget, because we really project to kind of recoup those costs on an annual basis on a more regular schedule with departments in 2025.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Can you tell us what it's going to cost us for 36 iPads for this?
A round number for the iPad, a case, the software license is right around $500 a pop.
A piece.
Yes.
So there will be costs for the county board, just so you realize. Nothing against Patty, I know it's gotta be, so I just wanted to bring that out though, just so you're all aware of it.
Can I
Supervisor Swan?
respond to that? I mean, I thought we have a fund over $30,000 for iPad replacement.
This could be coming out of there. I'm not saying
Yeah,
you're
okay.
gonna have to pay it, but it's going to have to come out of someplace.
I'm just saying, I know that when Supervisor Albrecht brought this about, they established that fund, I believe. And
So-
Supervisor Eisen mentioned that when he came to the board on the naming policy, that we had that.
I'm just bringing this up so you all know that someplace along the line, the board is also gonna have to pay for it, not individually or whatever, but it's
Right.
gonna come out of some pot of money from someplace of the boards.
But we already got the pots, what I'm saying,
Well,
established. Okay.
sometimes the pot runs dry sooner or later.
Thanks.
That's all I see. I thank you very much. Facilities and property management.
Good morning. Mike Elder here with the facilities budget. And if you look to page 184 in your budget book, that's where the facilities budget starts. We are an internal support department. We basically take care of all the building needs for the non-enterprise fund departments. And then we will partner with the enterprise fund departments to help take care of their building needs. It's kind of a hybrid type system of taking care of the buildings. We have roughly 18 different projects that we take care of. It ranges from taking care of the building alarms to doing equipment repairs, building repairs, custodial services, snow removal for the buildings. So it's a pretty encompassing job. So some of the big changes that we've had in this budget was we completed the facilities assessment. So that funding that was in the budget last year is going to show as a decrease in our professional services. And we've also got the generator project moving right along for the, or I should say the emergency operations upgrades to the Expo Center is moving right along. The bids came in that week, this week for that, and we are in the process of reviewing the contractors that are proposing for that. The other big changes that we have in our budget is our labor's gone up as a result of the compensation study, and the utilities are going up because once again, WPS and the utilities are asking for about a 7% increase in their rates, and the water utility is going up for the city of Oshkosh. And that's really pretty much the highlights of the department and our budget. We've tried to keep our budget flat for all the other services, and I'll take any of your questions.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, I noticed on your budget narrative, you say that vehicles have been hard to source. Is that just because of the UAW strike, or is this an ongoing problem? And why is it you're having trouble sourcing vehicles? Thank you.
In a nutshell, I don't really know why. During COVID, there was a real shortage or a difficulty of getting chips for the vehicles. So they made vehicles, but you couldn't buy them because they couldn't really operate the way they were supposed to because they didn't have the chips. So during the COVID time, we couldn't get them. There is a big push for electric vehicles. I'm not 100% sure that that's a good way for us to go yet. They come at a premium over what the cost of an internal combustion vehicle is. And then just for instance, last year when we wanted to buy a cargo van, we had in the budget 2 cargo vans. We got a phone call on Monday from General Motors saying, we're taking orders for 2023, and they have to be in by this Friday. And oh, by the way, the price that we told you about for your budget is now increased by $15,000. So in my budget, I had 2 vehicles at $40,000, and when it came time for me to place an order, I would have to have gone back and put in a bid or a request for $55,000 a vehicle, but there's no way I could get back to the county board through the facilities committee, through the personnel and finance committee, and the county board to get an increase in the budget for those vehicles by the time they closed the order taking on Friday. And that's what we've been seeing is they open up order taking for maybe a week or two, and the price isn't what they quoted us, and we can't get it. So we've actually been buying cargo vans on the used car market. I know Broadway up in Green Bay gets them off of lease. So we've been able to get a cargo van for the price that we had budgeted that is maybe 2 or 3 years old with about 30 or 40,000 miles on it. So then, you know, we get those, but they're not outfitted the way we want it, so we have those additional costs for it. But that's why it's hard for us to get vehicles.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mike. Can you talk a little bit about the help this county board gave to the facilities department in the last couple of years, increasing salaries, and how that's helped in changing the description of the custodian, and I don't remember the name, but just to give the little clarification here, you know, in the last couple budgets, Mike has consistently talked how understaffed that facilities has been. Still maybe there a little bit, but can you talk about that and then how that's helped your department?
Well, we started out having a custodian and a facilities assistant position. We could fill up the facilities assistant's position, and those were higher level custodial type skills that people had to do. The pay rate that we had for just the custodians, we weren't getting anybody in there. So last year, I believe we changed it to facilities assistant. We started getting a few more applicants for the job. And now when we did the compensation study, we are actually getting many more applicants for the job. Actually, we had gotten down to the point where we only had 1 custodian opening for the department, but we've had a couple people with the change in personnel situations or personal situations, and now I'm back up to, I believe, 3 custodial vacancies. But we're getting a lot more people that are actually applying and wanting to come to work for us.
Thank you for that, Mike. Can you also talk a little bit about the facilities that you don't maintain and why you might not maintain those facilities as far as cleaning and updating those? Can you provide some clarification to the board?
Well, it goes back, I've been here 25 years, and as Paul Kaiser said earlier, there were a lot of silos. And when I first started here, we took care of 7 buildings. And as I pointed out when we did the facilities condition assessment, that the county's got like 138 buildings. And what happened was, if a building held multiple tenants, like the courthouse has multiple tenants, that was something that facilities took care of. The buildings that were single occupants, those departments took care of it. And it's just been over the course of time that we've started working more cooperatively, and especially in the last few years, where some of the silos are being broken down, where we're actually helping each other more to get our stuff done. You know, I help highways a lot more, and highways will help us with what we need done, rather than in the past, it wasn't always such a collegial working relationship.
So would you say if you could have another staff person, a facilities assistant, they would be able to, handle, for example, airport, they contract out those services. How many, it doesn't make sense to me that we're contracting out services that we can do with our own people and provide a better value to the taxpayers in both the county. How many folks do you think it would take to take care of that?
If you wanted, like, I know solid waste contracts out, highways contracts out, airport contracts out, it'd probably be about 3 or 4 people.
Okay. Just one further thing. I know we're going to come to the board with the facilities assessment presentation. Anything that you wanted to tell the board about the findings, just in a snapshot?
Well, our report card's better than I thought it would be. But we're going to have some hard discussions and hard decisions to make in the near future. If you take a look at the age of our buildings, we've got Parkview, we've got the jail. Those were built in the early 2000s. And a lot of the equipment and a lot of the building structure has a limited lifespan for it. So we're going to be looking at, we've got 3 boilers out at the jail. We've got air handlers and chiller plants at the jail. We've got the same thing at Parkview. And those things are going to be reaching the end of their estimated useful life. Doesn't mean that we're going to have to replace them, because the boilers in this building are 31 years past their useful life. But there's going to become a time that the equipment that we have nowadays is not built the way it was 60 years ago. So there's going to be some big ticket items coming up. I don't want to steal the thunder. If I could be on the special meeting in January, but we've got like $90 million of deferred work that we have to do in the number of years, 10 to 20 years going forward. And that's at today's cost. So every year that we go and inflation goes up, that's going to grow a little bit. But we're not as bad as I thought we would be. But like I said, there's a few buildings that are on the radar as being needed to be replaced, because it's going to cost more to fix them than really what they're worth. Then there's some that are not quite there that we're going to have to discuss.
Yep. Thank you, Mike, and I want to thank the county board for approving that facilities assessment study. I think it's proven to be a good and useful tool. Thank you.
Supervisor Challenger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so you said last year staffing was a huge issue. It was one of the themes that so many departments brought forward, but certainly one that you experienced. Sounds like most of that has been resolved.
The custodial staff is more easily filled right now. We are still having problems with getting some of the trades.
Yeah, we heard about that plumber position earlier. Is that a long-term, is it long-term? Is there more that we could be doing, I guess, to make sure that when you do have vacancies, that the pool is bigger, that we have the connections to the right resource groups, or whatever the thing may be for your positions?
It's a lot to do with the demographics. I'm a baby boomer. We're the biggest bulge in population in this country, and we're all coming up on the retirement age. And as we're seeing with the schools and everything else, the generation that's following my generation, there isn't that many people, but we've gotten used to having all of these workers. So, even if we're having more people going into the trades, we're talking about, we're graduating tradespeople or engineers or nurses in the tens of thousands less than what we need to have. So other than breaking the bank and having these people become millionaires working for us, there's an awful lot of competition out there for us to compete with. And we have to weigh what our pay and benefits are, and try and make our environment more enticing to them. And to be truthful, working in government right now is not always looked at as being the best thing to do.
Yeah, I think so much of that is the trends that we are really up against, not just for you, but across the board. And I think that's the thing that warrants rethinking how we're filling filling these positions in the aggregate. And I think, a couple of years ago, I'd asked you, to kind of characterize staffing, and you were talking about the beginning of this transition, where for years, hiring wasn't really an issue for you, right?
No.
Like, somebody left, there was somebody else ready to take that job, and people stayed for a lot longer. And to me, this is one of the departments that it feels like the approach to bringing people in needs to change, so that it's not thought of as like bringing people in for the long haul, but more of a constant, ongoing process to keep these positions filled. I'm really glad that we have some of the staffing in a better position than sort of maybe the panic that it felt like last year. I want to turn to, so I think that answers a lot of questions actually about the wages, and I think that's pretty realistic that we actually get there. I want to turn to the contractual services then on page 194. There was a big increase in the projected number this year over our adopted and revised budget numbers. I was wondering if you could talk about what additional services needed to be contracted this year, and maybe in tandem with that, why some of those contractual services are dropping significantly this year.
Okay, the biggest one that we had was both Highways and I were really hit with some labor issues last year for winter. And the cost for removing the snow in the parking lots and on our sidewalks was contracted out. And the cost to do the parking lots was 3 to 4 times what Highways could do it for us for. So this year, Highways is staffed up better. They're back to doing our parking lots. So that is really the big thing that stands out in contracted services.
Thanks. I really appreciate what you said there about how much more it costs to contract this stuff out. And, earlier you said we can't go making everybody millionaires. We're a long way from making most county employees millionaires. But we are making somebody rich when we're paying 3 to 4 times the rate. And I think there is some medium in there. I understand, we have taken some steps to address that. But I just think that is one of the most critical things, liabilities out there for this county is how many services we have that sort of sit on that threshold where we might be able to provide them if we have the employees, but if we don't, we got to remove the snow. There's no choice. We got to keep people working at our 24/7 facilities, and the cost of doing that without our regular employees is astronomical. And whatever culture, I think that's what you were alluding to, is making the culture more attractive, or things like that. I think are really important steps for reducing the risk that we have in providing some of these services. Thank you.
Supervisor Ernst.
Thank you. I have some questions about some line items, and this is my first budget, so excuse my ignorance, if any. But looking at your revenues on page 189, item 48109, other miscellaneous revenues, there's some pretty wild discrepancies, or not discrepancies, but inconsistencies between what it seems to be adopted and revised and actual numbers. So I was just wondering if you could maybe specify or clarify some of what goes into that line item and why it's so much larger than last year.
This year, it's gone up so high because we have been awarded an energy efficiency and conservation block grant for $78,000. So that's where that's going to show up in there. But other years, it's if we get grants. We've had a couple years where there was a class action lawsuit for rate fixing for natural gas, and we got a significant payout from those. So that's where, excuse me, that's where some of the miscellaneous things that we've managed to find, we get focused on energy grants. We'll have the class action lawsuits that settle in our favor, or we get some other grants somewhere, and that's where it goes in there.
Okay, thank you. And then page 192, item 53517, the uniforms and tools allowance. Does that number just come from like end of life usefulness for these?
Right,
items?
it comes from, we had somebody last week was using their Sawzall and it burned up. It just failed. So now we have to go out and buy a new Sawzall for them to use.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Gabbard.
Again, I know you'll have the answers for me, so Expo Center bid for the generator, how did those bids come into play for that job compared to what we had figured?
Significantly less.
Wonderful, wonderful. Shelter care, we bought the building,
Yeah.
and now it's out for bids to remodel it.
Fix the things we got to fix. We got to put a new roof on, and we've got to extend the sprinklers into some other voids that they weren't done. I'm trying to think.
And what brought that about having to take place?
When we inspected it, it went from being a privately held one to governmental agency.
So what are you thinking that bid's going to range? I mean, what is your estimate roughly? I
can't tell you right now.
Could be 200,000 or so.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
I know you already passed a capital project authorization for it, and I believe maybe we put in $300,000, but I don't think it's going to be that much.
Okay. And I could drive down there, is that boathouse done for the sheriff's department?
The end of November is what we're being promised.
Of this year, okay, whatever. And are you seeing a lot of, if you're having job applicants, are you seeing people come that were laid off at the university?
We have not seen anybody.
Okay.
And I have contacts there.
Okay.
Actually, I've talked to their facilities, my counterpart there, and I said, hey, I've got all these openings. The county's got all these openings. Can you let your people know that these openings are here? And nobody has bitten on it.
So by you saying that you're seeing more people applying for positions, that's not even a factor.
No.
Okay.
Mark was up here and we were talking about like advertising and things like that. We've put decals on the back of our vehicle saying we're hiring.
Yeah.
We've got a sign in our front yard saying we're hiring. So we're trying to pick all the low-hanging fruit to get the word out that we're doing it. And I think we've had quite a few people walk in off the street because of our signs in our front yard.
Okay. And then we'll go back to one other quick caveat. So again, airport, highways, they're doing their own subcontracting for cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
So if you said it takes 3 or 4 people, salaries, that doesn't even weigh out to get 3 or 4 people hired, if you can, to do those facilities, because they're doing them for a lot less than probably one salary, or a salary and a half.
I don't know what they're being billed for.
Yeah.
What I do know is when I first came here, we were contracting out Neenah and Oshkosh Human Services buildings, and the level of service we were getting, as we tried to ratchet down the requirements and make them perform better, it went from like about $20,000 or $30,000 a year to about $150,000 to $200,000 a year. A lot of problems that we've had with contracted services in other places is that they don't pass our background checks.
Yeah, I was just going to say, things can be, yeah. That's good, thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I guess I would be curious, is there a position we could add to your budget that we would get our projects done in the year they're budgeted? Like the evidence garage, we budgeted that money in 2021. I believe it was $1.7 million. It's not even been started yet. I would venture to say that's going to be well over $3 million. If we had a project engineer that maybe could work on this stuff, you're busy. There's no way you can take care of all this stuff. And it's gonna cost us probably well over $1 million more to build that evidence garage today than it would have in 2021, which would have paid that person's salary for 10 years. You know, and then we got the 980 housing, the foundations are there, there's no wood there, you know, and it's like the boathouse. Maybe the project engineer would have seen they weren't building it right, and we'd have caught it before they got it all backfilled and done. So if there's a person I could add to your budget to make things work a little smoother, I mean, like the parks, we basically got the money for the boat landing gonna be done end of October. The airport got the money for the hangars, but this one project is all we had to bid out. You got basically tons of projects to bid out, and you can't possibly be all over watching them. So if there's a position we could add to basically get it so that our projects are done, UW Oshkosh, you and Paul Farrell can't basically oversee them. None of the money we budgeted, they haven't started any projects. So it's like we lost a whole year.
Well, going to the evidence garage, in 2021, it was authorized as just an evidence garage. In later that year, it changed from just being an evidence garage to we added on the morgue. So that became a whole new project. In 2021, what was authorized was $365,000. Then it added on the morgue. Then we had to come up with schematic designs in order to find out an estimate on what we would have to ask you all for a price to build the evidence garage and the morgue. So once we got that pricing, it took us 3 months to get it through the county process of going through judiciary, facilities, personnel and finance, and the county board to get the additional, I think it's $1.8 million now that we have authorized for that building. So all of that's gone through there. There's been some scope change with it that required taking a look at how we're going to get the building, get the equipment, the evidence to the building. We had to talk to the state to see if we could get another access off of Jackson Street. It's a restricted access. That took about a month to get that resolved. So we can't go through there. So now we have to find another way to get it to the parking lot because we can't come off Jackson Street through the existing driveway and we can't put a new one there. So now we have to find a new way to put a driveway in to get the large pieces of evidence to the parking lot. So all that being said, we've moved along as fast as we can. The project's going to go out for bid this week. So, you know, it's not like we just can't get it done. There's a lot of times that we have capital projects where we get the project from the department and this is what they want to do. We get into the design process and it's like, oh, well, we hadn't thought of that. We hadn't thought of that. We're going to do it this way. You know, when we built the new Parkview, to help them get through that process, we actually built a mocked up resident room so that we could get it right before we put it out for bid and had drawings done. It's a lot easier for us to move lines on a paper than it is once we have a wall built or a foundation poured.
I guess the questions I get from the people I represent, they see like the day-by-day warming shelter built in basically 6 months. They see 32 tiny houses built, people living there, and we don't even have 3 980 houses built yet. We got a foundation. And there's no wood there, so there's no construction happening there. And they know it costs more money the longer we wait. And it's like, the basement's been poured for 2 weeks and there ain't a stitch of wood on the site.
And that's because we're waiting for the trusses. There's a backup in getting trusses. You know, we have a capital project to replace the chiller up at Neenah. We bought the chiller last January. We were promised a 42-week delivery time. That would have put it at the beginning of October. We've now been told we might see it in December. So, you know, it's not just things get done slow. It's our process. It's the supply chain. We've got a contractor that's waiting to put up the walls, but why would he put up walls if he can't put up the trusses and put up a roof to keep the walls dry from the inside? So, you know, we're ready to go, but there's problems with getting the parts and materials that we need sometimes. The day-by-day shelter, you know, they can luck out sometimes. and they get the things that they need when they need it.
Well, they built 32 tiny houses, and they put them on,
Yep.
and they built the whole grounds in less time than we got 3 basements. You know, it's just, it's hard to explain that to people, and it's like, why don't they have a supply chain issue? You know, they have to get the same stuff that we get. I mean, the people are living there, and you look at, they got a big community center in the center of that, so it's like it's huge, and we got these, I don't even know what the size they are, they only look like 24 by 24, they're not as big as my garage, and nothing ever happens to them, you know, and people just kind of laugh at us. You know, I mean, it's like, how can it possibly, and I gotta say, well, it's a supply chain.
Well, the other thing you can point out to them too is that the residents that we have in those buildings aren't residents that are the same that go into the tiny homes. The people welcomed the tiny homes. Nobody welcomed our trailers or our tiny homes up on Y. In fact, it was a battle to get it through the city.
But there's nothing we could do to help it speed up we couldn't add a position like a project manager to oversee those projects. I mean, the building on Harrison Street, I know that the roof was bad on that, you said the parking lot was bad and the garage was bad, and I haven't seen one thing done on that building either.
We're working towards it.
I guess do the best you can.
Okay, I do not see any other ones. And it is 12:01, so we will recess until 1:01. I'm sorry about you guys in the back, but, so we'll recess for 1 hour.
Recording stopped.
The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly.